Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Murder Church on a Sunday morning. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm getting the sleep out of my eyes still, and as I still get used to Sunday mornings here, 9 a.m. Eastern time. And we're still continuing to power through the Jeffrey Dahmer trial from 1992, the classic insanity trial. Today we're going to be looking at a couple of different videos. The first one's actually going to be Judge Lawrence C. Graham and Cancel discussing trial proceedings. So that's going to be the one out the gate. We've also got Tracy Edwards, extremely emotional testimony coming, and then and we're going to move forward from there a little bit. But yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. Appreciate it. Let me look at the chat here. I know it's early in the morning. Already got a few people hanging out though. Jay, per usual. Good morning, Jay. Aspiring court reporter. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Farts and Truth. Love the name. Disney Nerd 85. Travis, thanks guys. Appreciate it again. Hit that like as you come through. Jamie as well. Ninja, good morning to you, sir. Helps us out in the algorithm as we go through the Sunday into the afternoon. I'm going to stream for probably about, again, it's been going for about four and a half hours here on Sunday. Going into the afternoon, we go from coffee to that first beer of the day here, or drink. So yeah, thanks for joining me. We're going to jump right in. I do have some cool announcements coming as we go through the day, and we'll get there. Yeah, it's something, if everybody was watching the Friday show, you know that we give away our first shirt. I do have a merch site that is going to be launched during the stream. So I'm excited about that. I'll get that information out there, but we'll get there. Let's go ahead and start out with this, with the trial here, guys. Lisa, see you coming through from Australia. Love it. I know she's got a little bit of a better time frame going on there. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate it coming through here. This is a 45-minute video here. Yeah, we'll get through this and we'll see how we play out here, and we'll get to some announcements and whatnot.
In addition to the litigants and their representatives, we have some other people that are presently in court, and I would like you to indicate your appearances on the record right now. Mr. Langley, you want to start out?
Yes, Your Honor. Grant Langley, Milwaukee City Attorney.
Record should also reflect that the court has had a telephone conversation with Attorney Ken Murray. You want to indicate what? Well, first of all, I think Mr. Langley wants to indicate what he's done at this point as far as the records that he's reviewed.
Your Honor, for the record, if the court will recall, on Monday evening, we produced the entire internal investigation relating to the discipline of two police officers who were at the scene of the incident involving Mr. Synthesymphone and Jeffrey Dahmer. We produced that information pursuant to an order of the court. At that time, I indicated to the court that we would look through the entire internal investigation to determine if there was anything in that investigation which might assist the defense in the issues of this case. And specifically, I'm referring to observations or statements that witnesses or police officers may have made of Mr. Dahmer or his apartment or the scene of the Synthesymphone incident or whatever that might in any way go to the issues before the court. We excluded from our review of the internal investigation anything that's contained in the criminal investigation and anything that's contained in the district attorney's in the Attorney General's investigation. We have now completed that review, and I should tell the court that I did a review of the file, and I also had two members of my staff independently do a review of the file. Assistant City Attorney Scott Thomas, who is in court with me, and another Assistant City Attorney. As a result of that review of the file, we have come up with this packet of documents. I'm not sure that any of it is relevant to the issues before this court, but because of the possibility that it might be, we decided that this was the packet of documentation that we would produce. Now the question becomes, how do we proceed from here? Obviously, we desire, to the extent possible, to avoid any problems with the due process rights of the police officers involved, that the information remain confidential unless it is necessary to be used in this trial.
The suggestion I made, and I think that it's acceptable to Mr. Murray with certain provisos, is this, that over the weekend, copies of this information would be made available to Mr. Murray and Mr. Guerin so that they can review it. It would be the intent of the court, if there is no objection, to then make those materials available to Mr. Boyle under a protective order of the court, which prohibits him from making any disclosure of those materials without prior approval of the court. He would then report back to the court as to what materials, if any, he would like to use. Counsel will then be given an opportunity to make objections to that information being made available to Mr. Boyle. Now, that's what would happen so long as there are no objections that are raised by Monday morning. If there's objections raised by Monday morning, then this court will set a time later that day for counsel to have the opportunity to appear and be heard. Now, Mr. Guerin, you're nodding your head that you seem to be, that's acceptable to you, is that correct?
My understanding, I have no objection.
Okay. Mr. Murray has indicated he has no problem with that. Mr. Boyle.
I just now got a coffee emoji. Let me get that in there. If you guys think of any other emojis, like maybe a mimosa or like, what is like a brunch type alcoholic drink, let me know. But let's see how this looks. Got some coffee. Boom. It's tiny, but it's there. I try to work on that a little bit, make it a little bit bigger.
I understand I'm going to receive a packet of material. I was thinking of something else for the
At
court.
the moment, you won't receive anything.
Oh, okay.
If this is acceptable, and see, the point is this, that they're not aware of the packet of materials we're talking about yet.
Oh, I see.
They only heard about this a matter of a few hours ago.
Okay.
And Mr. Murray has asked for, and I think Mr. Guerin probably joins in the request, that he should have the weekend to review the
Oh, I
materials to
see.
see what we're
Oh,
talking about.
Well,
But then if everything is in place,
Okay.
and they have no objections, then the packet would be made available to you under the protective order.
That's great. That's small enough, we can read that in no
And
time.
if there is a problem, we'll argue about it on Monday.
Fine,
Okay?
thanks.
Okay,
Your Honor, we should turn over 2 packets to the court.
okay. Okay, Vicki, those materials should be secured, so. Okay, that I think covers this problem, at least until Monday morning.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Now, counsel, you indicated to me there were some legal issues that you wanted to raise at this time concerning a witness.
Well, I think I should start because I'm about to proffer a witness. And for some reason or another, it appears as though we're going to have this discussion ab initio outside the presence of the jury. I think I would have a right, if I chose to do it the other way, of calling the witness and forcing the district attorney to object after a question is asked, and then we could have it. But I don't know why I have to play those silly games. I think it's important that I iron out the matter concerning the calling of the next witness, and therefore, I would tell the court that I am prepared. By the way, do you want to tell us, for the record, who's at council table with you, please?
Please, the court. With me at council table is, of course, Lieutenant Kenneth Moyler of the Milwaukee Police Department, and to my left, joining at my request, is Dr. Ellen Sturry of the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee faculty.
I'm about to call a gentleman by the name of Robert K. Ressler, R-E-S-S-L-E-R. He is director of the Forensic Behavioral Services that is located in Spotsylvania, Virginia, S-P-O-T-S-Y-L-V-A-N-I-A. Mr. Ressler still may be called as a witness, but primarily he would be called to render testimony relative to 3 things. One, laying a foundation for certain psychiatric and psychological witnesses that I would be calling. Two, answering, if otherwise qualified as an expert, a hypothetical question. And three, rendering expert opinion on the basis of what he feels relative to the conduct of Jeffrey Dahmer. Mr. Ressler has a Master of Science from Michigan State University. He was in the United States Army from '57 even up till the present, when he is retiring as a reserve full colonel. 1970, he was with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and remained with them until 1990. From 1970 to 1974, he was a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. 1974 through 1990, he became an instructor in the Behavioral Science Unit of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He was a special assignment was Criminal Personality Research Coordinator, which was done from the years 1978 to 1990. His professional and academic affiliations: he's on the faculty and was on the faculty of the FBI Academy, clinical assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry, the School of Medicine at Georgetown University, and has been affiliated with other universities as an assistant professor. His professional organizations and membership, there's 13 in number, but the three main ones is he is a member of the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law, American Academy of Forensic Scientists, the Academy of the Criminal Justice Sciences, the International Homicide Investigators Association. He was given an award as a non-psychiatric colleague to the American Academy of Psychiatry at the annual Jefferson Amicus Award for assisting that field of endeavor. His grants and research projects have been many, but the ones I choose to make the court aware of at this time are the Criminal Personality Research Project of the FBI and Sexual Homicide Crime Scene Data. He has specialized training, amongst his training, criminal profiling and crime scene analysis, all of which he did and learned of while he was a member of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and he taught the same at the FBI Academy. He has written a series of books, one called Sexual Homicide Patterns and Motives. He has written a number of, he's currently writing another book. He has published in the American Journal of Psychiatry, the FBI Law Enforcement Bulletin, the Journal of Interpersonal Violence. His articles primarily regarding criminal profiling and sexual and/or homicidal crimes include sex-related murder and crime scene investigation, serial murder and new phenomenon of homicide, the presumptive role of fantasy in serial homicide, sexual homicide, a motivational model, offender profiles, a multidisciplinary approach. He has made numerous, 300 as a matter of fact, professional presentations in this area of endeavor. His presentations have been given to organizations such as the American Psychiatric Association, American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law, many police departments, American Academy of Forensic Scientists, American Psychological Association, and the FBI National Academy Association. The typical names of conferences where he's made these presentations are psychological profiling of unusual homicides, profiling of multiple murders, mass murders, and serial murders. I would like to indicate to the court that there came a time in the late 1970s and into the 80s where the FBI, in trying to help local law enforcement, went, when called upon by local law enforcement, to assist them in trying to determine the type of person they were looking for in unsolved homicides and unsolved serial murder cases. The FBI, and Mr. Ressler primarily, as the director of the project, went about the business of finding out whether or not there were any common threads between people who were known serial murderers and whose information was known on a professional and scientific basis, and those who had been apprehended and in personal interviews with the likes of John Gacy, the Hillside Strangler, people of that sort, in order to see whether or not they could create some understanding to tell local law enforcement as to the kind of person they should be looking for. Now, In preparing myself for this case, I came across, as anyone similarly situated, a lot of conflicting facts and information. And I, in the interest of trying to determine whether or not the conduct that I was made aware of, both from police reports, from Mr. Dahmer's confession, and from other information, plus interviews of Mr. Dahmer, whether or not I was dealing with somebody who was purely antisocial, which would be excluded by the instruction, as the court knows, somebody who was borderline psychopathic, somebody who was psychotic, somebody who was totally mentally ill that would be suffering from a psychotic disease such as schizophrenia. I learned in the course of that serial killers are a regiment unto themselves, that most serial killers are antisocial and they are not suffering from mental disease, at least as far as the research was concerned. What Mr. Ressler has done while he was with the FBI, and as he would be prepared to testify to today, is based upon crime scene investigation, the confession of Mr. Dahmer, the information given to him through discovery from the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office, that Mr. Dahmer fits a certain type of profile. In other words, if Mr. Dahmer was not, if all things known about Mr. Dahmer were known right now except his identity, then it would be a Mr. Ressler who might be able to advise the Milwaukee Police Department or the West Dallas Police Department as to the type of perpetrator they might be looking for. What has come about this analysis that is at least 12 or 13 years in duration and is used by psychiatrists and psychologists, it's available to them, they're aware of it, they use the same kind of language representing the concepts as Mr. Ressler would testify, is that people fall into three categories. They're either organized killers, disorganized, or mixed, that they have some organized aspects to them and some disorganized aspects to them. That this concept that the FBI has used and that Mr. Ressler has used as a law enforcement officer, in effect yields the following information: that the organized person is not one who is suffering from a mental illness, that is an antisocial person, and the reason for that is because of the commonality of a number of things that are more antisocial in nature. As an example, the antisocial serial killer never admits to his serial killings, basically until the last moment, if at all. There's always a total denial. That puts him in from a classification that the FBI says that's, and Mr. Ressler, when he's a member of the FBI, said that's a category. There's a whole bunch of things that they use to show what you might be looking for in a profile. The reason Mr. Ressler becomes important to my case is that he would testify, if allowed to render an expert opinion, that Mr. Dahmer has evidence of both organized and disorganized traits. That his organized traits are A through L, and his disorganized traits are M through Z. And as a result of that, it is his opinion, based upon his many years of experience in the field of crime scene analysis, that Mr. Dahmer tends to be in the more disorganized category than he is in the organized category. That is a foundation question to allow the doctors to utilize this information to bring to the attention of the jury that they believe that the conduct of Mr. Dahmer was into the psychosis mode rather than the antisocial mode, and all of my doctors are going to testify to that. Dr. Becker, when I talked to her, and I didn't, of course, cross-examine her on what she meant, but she clearly talked about this concept with me, and I gleaned from her that she is talking about the same kinds of things. But here I have a person whose 20 years of his life was devoted to law enforcement, who I came to and gave information to and asked him to analyze it and to give me some idea based upon his knowledge of experience and training, whether or not he could be of any assistance to me in bringing facts to the attention of this jury that may help them resolve the question before the court. Now, we all know what the rules of law are.
Just real quick, it is interesting here because as we've, over the last few weeks, we've talked about this. This is an insanity trial. Jeffrey Dahmer ultimately As soon as he was arrested, he just gave everything up. Like last week, we went over a 60-hour confessional. The entire episode was one person going over a detective that was in the room with him going over a 60-hour confessional, giving up everything. I don't think Jeffrey Dahmer was trying to hide anything. I think he was tired. I think he was done. He's a very unique case here. And again, like the defense attorney here said, a lot of times these guys don't want to admit it till the last possible second, right? Look at Ted Bundy. It took a decade after he was already convicted to start admitting a lot of this stuff. And then that was even to save his life a little bit longer, right? He knew he was going to be executed in 1989 and he started spilling the beans a little bit. But yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer is different. Jeffrey Dahmer's like, this is everything that happened. This is what's going on. Jeffrey Dahmer's a unique one. He's a weird one. I mean, he's fucked up, obviously. And if we look back through his childhood and everything that happened to this guy, I mean, he came from a decent family, maybe not the most attentive family, but he came from, not slums. So, not to say that most serial killers do. And sometimes, it's usually an abusive background at some point they've felt or faced. But yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer, when he got arrested, he was like, yeah, here's what happened. I'm done. Right. Like even here in this courtroom, like we know where we're at here already. This is an insanity trial to see if he's going to be going, which again, this is a classic trial. We know what's happened, but put yourself in the 1992 time frame. Does he go to a mental institution? Does he go to a hospital, or does he go to prison at this point in time? And it's an interesting conversation to have, I think. People can have psychosis breaks, right? And then try to come back or flip between maybe even. And I kind of think that's what was happening with Jeffrey Dahmer here. He would literally flip a switch, something that he couldn't control, an impulse that he couldn't control, wanting literally the bodies of these people, the men, and not wanting to then give them up when they want to say, hey, we're done here. And he would, get them in there with whether he was going to pay them for pictures or they're coming over for a drink, or whether it was for actual to have sex with this man. I mean, and then once they wanted to go, he was like, So.
Relative to the introduction of expert testimony. And there's a great liberal bent in this state that we really bend over backwards if the expert can help in any way to bring to the attention of the jury facts they would not otherwise know from another source to assist them in their decision. It's the matter of weight, then, that they can accept or reject, which covers the situation and gives to the court the discretion to lean more towards allowing expert witnesses to come in than not. Secondly, I would like to bring to the court's attention that in the material, and I think it's in the State versus Carlson case, that's 5 Wisconsin 2nd, the court says in page 606, even under the right-wrong test, they're talking about the right-wrong test, but they said that the rule in this state, and it's also quoted in a jury instruction on the materials that you're going to be using as a footnote, no evidence should be excluded which reasonably tends to show the mental condition of the defendant at the time of the offense. I could cite to 4 or 5 other cases that the court might want to look at if the court feels that there's a specific question. I don't think there's any question that he qualifies as an expert. I think the state has a right to say whatever they want to say concerning his opinion. However, when Mr. McCann made his opening statement, I had heard him say a number of times that this man, Jeffrey Dahmer, when he was doing these things, was in control. It was control. I submit to you, Your Honor, that what appears to be control to the layman will not necessarily be control as it is to someone who has been studying the profile characteristics of a batch of serial killers, when we know that the database of serial killers, thanks be to God, is not all that large, that people, when they're considering whether or not Jeffrey Dahmer, while he was going about the business of his serial killing, was really a disorganized killer, a mixed killer, or a organized killer, so that the doctors, when they testify as to their opinions, might also allow this jury to understand what a man like Mr. Reschler says these kinds of things may mean on the basis of his 12 years of experience studying this very, very small measure of humankind that has been come to known as serial killers. So I also would like to tell the court And I have some material here that he has written in his book that deals with the concept of organized, disorganized, that I can give to the court if the court would like to see it before it makes a ruling. But I would also like to tell the court that there is an article that is written by a doctor by the name of Resnick, a co-authored Dr. Resnick. Dr. Resnick is, I'm sure I say this without any fear of any contradiction. As a matter of fact, Mr. McCann had considered, well, he put him down as a potential witness in one of the letters to us, but I don't know if he's going to be called or not. He is known to be one of the 2 or 3 nationwide experts in the field of necrophilia. In his articles on necrophilia and his analysis of necrophiliacs, it's called Sexual Attractions to Corpus, a Psychiatric Review of Necrophilia, the Bulletin of American Academy of Psychiatric Law, Volume 17, Number 2, 1989. The author, that is Dr. Roseman, R-O-S-M-A-N, and Dr. Resnick, R-E-S-N-I-C-K, state in a footnote, the authors thank D.R. Berg, D.S. Hucker, M. Marler, M-A-R-L-E-R, and the Behavioral Science Unit of the FBI for their assistance. I don't think there's any question whatsoever that I can call Mr. Ressler to the witness stand and render the testimony of the nature that I've just said. Thank you.
Mr. Buchanan.
I'm sure the court was waiting, as I waited, to see if counsel was to ever cite even one case where this man testified as an expert witness on an issue such as this. He cited no such situation, and I strongly suspect that this man has never been recognized as an expert to address the issue that he's going to try to.
Of course, District Attorney Edward Michael McCann is the gentleman trying to put him in prison. And then, of course, it's his defense attorney, Boyle, is the one that's trying to get him into a hospital.
Undertake in this court, an issue that I believe firmly will confuse this jury with irrelevant testimony which will invade the province of the jury. When we ascertained what was the intent here by Mr. Boyle, I secured some materials that had been written by Mr. Ressler, a book, some other articles, and submitted them to Dr. Ellen Sturry of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee faculty. She has a PhD in criminology, and she is very skillful in, particularly in statistics. And I submitted materials to her yesterday evening, and she very graciously on short notice has applied her time to those materials, and we consulted within the past hour on it. And as I had suspected, let me dwell a little longer on her because we're going to be detailing about experts. She has a PhD.
Very truly so. We were also still in a time where homosexuality was not accepted. And that's a big factor in this case, I think, because the way the police treated this, the AIDS situation that was going on at this point in time, the late 80s into the 90s. I remember that. I'm 36 years old. As a child, I remember how television was, the way they pushed that. And yet, in homosexuality in general, it was a very taboo type of subject to breach almost. Then you had this mentality, right? You had the police coming to his house, being called. They didn't want to do anything. And then all Dahmer did, he knew that he had to play the psychological game, right? He had to play that card. Oh, we're just doing some gay stuff in here. There's no reason to come in here. And instantly it makes them get weirded out. They're afraid of AIDS because of all the, misinformation on the news that was running rampant at the time. Very good point, Lisa. Yeah.
PhD from the Criminal Justice School of Criminal Justice of the State University of New York in Albany, and her areas of concentration were in law and social control, criminology, research methods, and statistics. So research methods and statistics were one of her areas of expertise and concentration. Her dissertation topic was, quote, an empirical test of police personality typologies. And that involves statistics, and really what we're talking about in organized and disorganized subject is we're talking about typologies. She also has a master's in arts from the Criminal Justice of the School of Criminal Justice of the State University of New York, and her AB in 1973 is in Forensic Studies and Political Science, a double major, College of Arts and Sciences of Indiana University at Bloomington. She is a skilled and respected in her field. She has a very extensive number of articles.
Yeah, she's going to be on the stand, I think, in the next video. So,
and a number of them involve statistical studies. She advises me this vitae is dated by 2 years. Were her current vitae to be put in, there would be additional articles. I will have that marked by the clerk and ask that it be shown to Mr. Boyle and then submitted to the court while I continue my remarks. The expertise they're talking about is profiling, if it please the court. And the whole thrust of profiling is when you don't have the defendant in custody, which is a complete difference from what we have here. The idea of profiling is to assist the police by giving them some clues of who they're looking for, by studying crime scenes and saying, who do we want? Is it a young man or an old man? Is he a loner or what is he? And it's all looking to the future, all looking to an unknown. It's painted in broad parameters to assist police to say, who are we looking for in this type of an offense? And that's the whole idea of the typology. That's the whole idea of the research. That's the whole planning, is looking for an unknown. And that's what the thrust of the research is. Now we have a known person. These studies weren't designed to apply to understand known persons, and of the materials that have been published at least, there is no scientific study of applying this profile to people who have been arrested. No one that I know of has ever been allowed to testify on that, and certainly not to testify as a part of an insanity defense. I would be shocked. I talked to Mr. John Douglas of the FBI about this utilization. He is still there. I believe he is the director of that unit. And the idea of utilizing the profile to apply it to a person.
this guy's good. This guy's vibe is heavy.
Person who has been arrested in an insanity proceeding startled him. And far as he told me, as far as he knows, it has not been done in the United States. And I listened with a keen ear to see if Mr. Boyle would say that this gentleman, Mr. Ressler, has ever testified in such a proceeding. And I submit to the court, I'd be very surprised if he did. I don't know of his ever having done it. Mr. Douglas could not conceive of it being done, and if it pleased the court, this is, if we were looking who has killed these 15 people, I would say bring in Mr. Ressler. Wouldn't be a court proceeding, maybe a John Doe, but I'd say, Mr. Ressler, come and sit down and let's talk about it. Who are we looking for? But that isn't what's at issue before this court. He will tell you, I'm sure Mr. Ressler will tell you, that the thrust and the purpose of those studies was looking for an unknown. That's what your profile is, an unknown. We have a known person here. And to rest then on to ignore a mass of known information about this man and to turn to a profile that's designed for unknown persons is an absurd, absolutely, to take the word of Dr. Story, an absolute unscientific application of this material. It is a perverse, inapplicable profile, and if it please the court, this will confuse the jury, it will invade the province of the jury, and it has no scientific application to what we're doing here. And as far as I suspect, this man has never testified in an insanity proceeding attempting to use these profile statistics to tell a jury whether a person is sane or insane at the time he did it. A person in custody that's known, that can be studied and examined, who's opened himself and described what he did and so on. So if it please the court, I keenly respect the creative aspects of Mr. Boyle. It's creative, indeed, it's innovative. Indeed, under the Fry test, as far as I recollect, applicable in Wisconsin to expert ideas, this is as new as a babe that just sprung from the womb less than an hour ago. It is untested, it is without precedent, and it is an innovation sprung on the court which will confuse and mislead this jury. Profiling has no business in a courtroom where the person is ascertained. The whole purpose is apply it to an unknown. Here we have a known. And if it please the court, you can read all that research.
Yeah, West Virginia and Florida is the same state. Fallen's from Scotland, everyone, and I totally get and understand why, you know, just like any other country to me. And I don't know like exactly the geography of it, but yeah, Florida and West Virginia are probably about like 9 hours apart or so. I've never actually been to Florida, but I've had some buddies drive up there. And just looking at a map of the U.S., it's just so vast and crazy. But yeah, West Virginia is a small state. I mean, it's, you know, in Virginia, just in comparison, is a more rather large state. But yeah, out here in old West Virginia now.
I've read the articles. I've read Mr. Ressler's book. He doesn't speak in the book of applying this to determine whether a known arrested person is sane or not. If it please the court, let me point out also, we can't tell whether what is the base, the database. Mr. Boyle says, fortunately, there are only few serial murderers. He attempts to gild what is a very ugly fact that the database is only 36 serial killers that they've studied. Further, we can't tell from looking at it whether it's 25 and you break out 11. Further, if it please the court, every one of the disorganized criminals in that study were heterosexual attacks. Not one of them involved a serial killer that was a homosexual. And if it please the court, I don't think Mr. Ressler is qualified to say that the same rules apply to a disorganized heterosexual attacker as applied to a homosexual, because as far as I can see, they never studied a homosexual serial attacker. Never. And the studies point out that all 12 of the disorganized were heterosexual attackers. If it please the court under the Fry test, this would be such an aberrant use of this testimony that it would discolor justice, frustrate, confuse the jury, and I ask the court, Dr. Sturry is prepared to testify. If Mr. Ressler wants to get on the stand and say, no, some of those 12 disorganized were homosexuals, I'll ask him, why didn't you put it in the study then? Why did you say that all 12 were heterosexual serial attackers? Dr. Sturry is prepared to testify. If Mr. Ressler wants to get on the stand, let's get to it. But if it please the court, in my opinion, this is really confusing testimony. Doesn't belong before a jury. It's unscientific. Creative. Mr. Boyle is a very creative lawyer, and I salute him for that. His attempt to say, fortunately, it's a small number. 36 is an infinitesimally small number to a database to start projecting and analyzing people on when you have the person in custody.
Bull's about to attack him. Bull's getting up. He's fixing his belt. He's going to attack this man. Edward Michael McCain has went too far. He's went too far.
Thank you.
I think I have to respond. First of all,
he's like, I got to get up here and say something now. This son of a bitch right here.
I think the testimony would include John Wayne Gacy, who I think killed 35 young boys. So
he's getting fiery now. Huh? That was good.
I don't think it is just a heterosexual kind of study. But I think counsel misses the point. First of all, this case is unique for the simple reason that there is no issue on guilt or innocence. So the only time it can be raised is in the insanity portion. The fact that it's innovative doesn't mean that it changes anything at all. The fact that Mr. Dahmer is known does not change a person who has the appropriate training of getting up and saying,
yeah, this judge always looks like he's trying to just pass out on us, Jay.
based upon my observations of the crime scenes, the pictures, what I have learned, I can tell you that the person who committed these crimes would fit into this category, and the fact that the person is known doesn't take away the ability of an expert to tell this jury that many of the things that the state is going to use to show that Mr. Dahmer was a cool, calculating killer who was not suffering from mental disease are subject matters that the FBI, in the course of their training, look upon as things reflecting a person who is not necessarily merely cold, calculating, antisocial.
without rendering a psychiatric opinion, Mr. Ressler will be laying the foundation about many of the things that Mr. Dahmer did for the doctors then to tell the jury that when Mr. Dahmer led the officers back into his apartment with this poor youngster Conrax in the zone, that there was a dead body in the next room laying on the bed, and that he, Mr. Dahmer, was able to persuade the police that he had everything under control, that counsel for the state is going to be used as exemplifying somebody who's a very...
I like both these guys. I like both these attorneys, man. They both are fiery. They're both passionate. And, again, they both believe in what they're saying. At least that's the vibe I'm getting right now.
Sane, calculating killer, when in truth and in fact, those concepts by the FBI Behavioral Science Lab have been used not to demonstrate that kind of a person, but the opposite. And I think that I'm entitled to call my witnesses here unless I am overstepping the bounds of what is allowed to be testified into evidence by this court's discretion, not someone else's theory as to who can and can't be called, but this court, so that the weight...
Samantha Terry opening up this Sunday, becoming a buzzed and confused member. I love it. Love it. First of all, hopefully this is working down here. Oh, yeah. Also, let's welcome to the party. Let's make sure I got the, where's the beers at here? Gotta make sure the beers are ready to go. Oh, give them the beers, everybody. Give her the beers. Give her the beers. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's early on a Sunday to be getting those beers, but appreciate the hell out of it. And yeah, every time we get a new member here, we load up the chat with beers, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Buzzed and confused level member Samantha Terry. That's amazing.
Of their testimony can be looked at by this jury to see whether it aids them in making decisions that when the state says A, that maybe it isn't A, it might be B. And I have a right to bring Mr. Ressler in here to talk about his analysis of some of these cool, calm, and collected things that Mr. Dahmer did, as not being, as counsel for the state has made statements and opening statements, and he will in closing argument. And it's my opinion that the Fry test is no longer the test in Wisconsin, that the Wallstead test is the test in Wisconsin, and the court should overextend itself to allow someone who is otherwise qualified to render information to the jury that might help them in their deliberations on the questions before them. And I'd like to say this. First of all, Mr. Ressler has testified and has been qualified as an expert. He has not testified on this type of thing, because I don't know if it's ever been tried anywhere. I mean, we don't have a system where they've been rejected.
It's important to the court to know if it has been accepted in some other court.
I don't know if it's ever been tried before, Your Honor, because it's being tried for the first time, and because he has never been qualified as an expert on this question, may very well be that nobody has attempted to bring this kind of information before a jury on the question of a serial killer's organization, disorganizations, or mixed organization as being demonstrative of the state of mind of that serial killer. But he can't be rejected, because if we've had 15 serial killers or 36 who have come to trial, and this hasn't been attempted before a courtroom, doesn't mean because he hasn't been qualified in others, or somebody else hasn't been qualified in others, he should be rejected out of hand. The court can't accept that argument. But I can tell you he has been accepted as an expert by courts in other jurisdictions on his expertise. I think 3 of them were in the sentencing aspect of it, and 1 in a sentence modification aspect. So I do think that this man has been found by a court to be a qualified expert. And I also would like to say, and I know Mr. McCann very well, and I know he is not attacking Mr. Ressler. I know that he is not saying anything negative.
Nah, not this early yet. As we get a little bit closer into the afternoon, I may go in there and make a drink, but not quite yet. I've actually got last week I was doing the water. I've actually got a soda this morning just to try to pep me up just a little bit.
About him as a person.
I'm a night owl, guys. I do almost all my work after like 11, midnight, 1 in the morning. And it's hard for me to go to sleep early. So even like when I get up for this, I was up to like 1 this morning. So when I do get up this early, even though I get up every single day for work early as hell, I still stay up late working on this channel. So I've got a little bit more used to not having sleep, but still this morning I did a little extra something.
Professional, and I want to make that clear. What he is saying is that he does not want a Mr. Wrestler, who is now no longer a member of Mr. Douglas's FBI unit, to get into a courtroom and give his opinion as to how he would have told the Milwaukee law enforcement people what they should be looking for if they knew all of these facts but didn't know the perpetrator. And the fact that they know the perpetrator now doesn't mean that suddenly his thoughts and procedures that he would otherwise employ have no validity before a jury who's going to be asked to understand what do all these things Mr. Dahmer was doing all these times mean to them.
Jay. Absolutely. And you can tell the passion that's in both of these guys right here.
When they're weighing the question of Mr. Dahmer's sanity or insanity, as long as the doctors, when they testify, are able to say, these facts, Mr. McCann, as you're asking me about control, does not alter my opinion because they are worthy of being considered differently than you are suggesting, and I am rejecting your basis for saying that these things don't go towards his mental illness. And that's basically what Mr. Wrestler is doing, to tell from a law enforcement perspective that these facts of a person doing these things do not take on a certain mark to them, a certain imprint, that means that everything that person is doing then is more of an antisocial, non-psychotic, non-mentally diseased person. So I think the law is clear that the court has to bend over backwards. I think we've shown a basis. We certainly have shown a 20-year professional of the FBI, and he comes into this court to try and assist me in trying to do what I think is necessary so that the jury can make its decision. And if Mr. McCann wants to argue about the weight, let him argue about the weight. Thank you.
Just very briefly, there's the very heart of the matter is, and Mr. Boyle concedes that he has never testified before on such an issue. And if it pleases the court, this is not the time to start. It's on a
Yeah, that's the thing here. Angel D. Dahmer had allegedly admitted that if he hadn't been caught, he would have most definitely offended again. And I think that's why he was so fucking broken. He couldn't stop the compulsion. He literally couldn't stop murdering people for wanting to keep them. He wanted to keep their bodies. He wanted to not be alone. He had some real fucked up issues. But then as soon as he did get caught and he got taken down to the station that very night, he was so open. 60-hour confession. That's pretty wild. Like, that is unusual for a serial killer just out the gate, or any kind of killer just out the gate, to just be like, here's what happened, right?
sentencing, the court knows very well on sentencing issues, everyone, bring in anybody you want, bring in the minister, bring in the rabbi, bring in the priest, even the lady next door, the lady down the block, the bus driver that always...
When Fallen Angel, I'll read your post like in the Scottish accent. It's amazing.
Anybody that wants to, any court, look, come on in, we'll hear their testimony. Totally different from a seriously contested issue of fact, as is the sanity in this case.
If I may just real fast, I wouldn't be calling him now anyway. I wanted to get this out. If you want to dwell on it, it's fine. I'm going to call Tracy Edwards, regardless of what the court rules, unless you're ready to rule. But I wouldn't be calling him even if you told me I could.
I think the court's prepared to rule on this. We might as well get it out of the way while it's fresh in everybody's mind. Section 907.02. If I don't cover up the microphone with the book, maybe it'd be a little easier for folks on the other side to hear what I'm saying. Section 907.02 is testimony by experts. If scientific, technical, or other specialized knowledge will assist the trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact and issue, a witness qualified as an expert by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education may testify thereto in the form of an opinion or otherwise. Now, in the Judicial Council's committee note, when this evidence code was adopted in 1974, there's some guidance along with quite a number of cases that are cited there. And it says that the test is whether such testimony will assist the trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact and issue. And goes on to say, with such a test, expert testimony will usually be admissible and will only be excluded if superfluous and a waste of time. And I guess that's what the court has to determine here. What my understanding is, what we're taking a science, and maybe that's too strong a word, but a procedure that's been developed in law enforcement where you take information as to crimes that are committed, you put that together and you try to develop from that a profile for the person that you're looking for. Now that's how this information got developed, as I understand it. What the defense would like to do is reverse the process. That we have a defendant, a known person, and that he's committed some crimes, and from that infer what his mental status was at the time he committed the crimes. Will that be helpful to the jury?
Shannon coming through. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Let me pop that up here on the screen. Boom. Yeah, and please, yeah, make sure every Sunday pop through here, and I'd stream, throughout the week as well.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Love it, love it, love it. The satisfying beer course that the judge is blocking there, but thank you so much. Appreciate that. And yeah, becoming a member is super appreciated here. Thank you so much. That's awesome. You are now a producer of the content at Publicly Buzzed, so that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Jury. I think in evaluating, first of all, I have nothing to indicate that that reverse procedure is helpful. One. Two, this defendant has been examined by I don't know how many psychiatrists and psychologists who have rendered opinions, some of which agree and some of which disagree. But it would seem to me that the opinion based upon an examination of this defendant just so far outweighs the value.
The beers, always forget about it. Throw the beers in the chat. Throw the beers in the chat. I love it. You got to get yourself some brews now.
Of a profile theory. That indeed that testimony would be superfluous and a waste of time, and on that basis the court will grant the state's motion to exclude the testimony.
In the interest of making my record,
Yes, you may proceed.
I would like to tell the court that I am not going to, nor would I ask Mr. Ressler to render an expert opinion on the mental condition of Mr. Dahmer. I was reversing the procedure so that Mr. Ressler, because of his expertise,
Membership coming through again. Lisa Marie Pritchard, thank you very much. Let's throw it up on the screen. Thank you so much. Welcome to the party, and get your beer. Get your beers down. Boom, boom, boom. That satisfying pour. I love that so much. Boom. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I'll pop it up again. Lisa Marie, new member. Thank you. Give them the beers, everybody. Give her the beers. Give her the beers. Give her the beers. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. That makes me seriously so fucking excited.
would be able to render an opinion as to whether certain conduct by a person who did certain things was of an organized, disorganized, or mixed category as a foundation for my doctor's testimony. And last but not least, in spite of what the court has ruled, I think, and I'm going to ask the court, if I can call Mr. Ressler and ask him a hypothetical question based upon his knowledge and experience, if a serial killer did A, B, C through L, X, Y, and Z, would that be indicative that that serial killer's conduct was considered that which the FBI has developed as a useful tool in law enforcement as being indicative of an organized, disorganized, or mixed person? And I submit, taking into account all of what the court has said, the court still has to address my desire to put Mr. Restaurant as a hypothetical expert, to ask him questions.
Oh, shit. Oh, okay, I remember Devil Doll 666. Nice, Fallen Angel. Yeah, when people come through and they change their name, it does kind of fuck me up. There's one person that comes through that changes their name often, and it'll take me a second. I'm like, oh, wait, no, I know you.
Now into this record as to how someone in the FBI behavioral science would categorize the conduct of a human being who admittedly did A through X. And I would ask that the court also rule on that question, because I think that's a viable way of my being able to bring this issue to the attention of the jury and get around the objections that the court has just addressed itself to in accordance with the decision that he has rendered.
Mr. McCann.
I object to him being in front of a jury, presenting something like that in front of a jury. It's between the counsel and the court how he chooses to make a record and what the court chooses to permit him to make a record, but not in front of the jury.
I think the defense has the right to make an offer of proof in whatever form it chooses to do so. And if, having heard that offer of proof, if I think that there are some things that properly the jury should hear, I can make that ruling.
I'd like to do that, and I'd like to do that, though, after we start up and I bring Mr. Edwards up, so I can properly formulate the offer.
Sure.
I have Dr. Sturry here, though, for that specific purpose, to counsel me in that event. When do you have in mind doing it?
About an hour from now. Is that a problem?
Dr. Sturry can wait. Now, I take it this is going to be done in the absence of the jury.
Well, I think I'll offer.
No, it would be in the form of an offer of proof, which necessarily must be outside the presence of the jury.
I may do it in the form of question and answer, just a statement, and I think after I finish my next witness, we can take a break. I'll then make my decision, make my record. You can make the ruling.
Sure.
This was actually one of the most interesting videos we've watched yet. These two attorneys are passionate. They're here to play. Yeah, that was very interesting. That's the first video of today. Again, that was Dahmer outside the presence of the jury. The next one is going to be emotional, guys. The next one is going to be the last person that got away from Jeffrey Dahmer, Tracy Edwards. I have watched this before. This was the first ever true crime video me and Dan ever did on this channel, us watching this. It was during the Netflix stuff, during that show. But yeah, we're going to go into that next. I'm going to take just a quick little break here before we go into that. And I have a new video. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and plug it up here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some merch happening. You know, if anybody watched on Friday, you know that we gave away a shirt, but I've been working really hard to actually get something out there, and I finally have it. Now, as we go forward, I'm going to keep loading stuff up on this. I'm still working actively. There's going to be more hoodies coming. Again, literally, I'm in real time still working on this, but I do have something to actually give. Today, I'm calling it a soft open, basically because I fucked up and I can't currently take credit cards or debit cards because I didn't go through that side of it. I just started that yesterday. Monday, I've got to get with my bank, and that should be happening this week. But today, you could purchase with PayPal. So again, this is going to be a soft open. Still excited to get it rolling, and it is. It's going to be PubliclyBuzzed.com. Put this right here into the actual chat. If anybody does want to purchase anything, it should actually be available. There's sizes on there. But yeah, I'm going to continue to actually drop new merch on there quite often. And even on Fridays, on Feral Fridays, our big show, I plan on dropping some specific merch that will only be active maybe for the weekend. And then there is different levels of memberships. There's one that's called, I think the $10 level membership. There will be specific shirts that will be coming to those folks. And they actually also will get discounts for certain things. But again, as we continue to grow and grow this thing up, I think this is the next level. And I'm really excited to get it going. So it should actually be rocking and rolling on there. But yeah, we're going to take a quick break. Probably like 5 minutes. I'm going to use the bathroom. I'll be back. And we'll keep rolling on through the Jeffrey Dahmer trial here with Tracy Edwards. Jake's still coming through here. See it? Oh yeah, man. Yeah, he was from an old channel. I have a wrestling channel as well, guys. Oh, thank you, Jamie. Appreciate it. Yeah. If anybody with the PayPal, probably just chill out until I can, and I'll be making, of course, some more announcements through the week as we come. But yeah, I fucked up yesterday when I started to launch, and I was like, oh, cool, we'll get this thing launched. And then I was like, wait, I think it was my brother. I think it was Dan that was going through. He's like, I only had the option to pay with PayPal. I was like, fuck. And then there was a whole nother thing that I have to go through, and I got to get with my bank, and it'll happen this week. So, but yeah, still, I thought I would do the soft open though. And yeah, again, there's going to be koozies are going to be coming. Absolutely. Maybe some rolling trays, super early in this thing, super duper early. And again, I'm just one person, you know, I put a lot of work into this. I do all the editing. I do all the graphics. I do literally that. I designed every one of those shirts. I'm doing a lot of stuff. So yeah, just keep the patience and we'll keep moving this thing forward, guys. Yeah, I will be right back. I'm going to take a quick break. New video for the break, though. New video for the break. We'll be right back.
We'll return after these messages.
Can't stop shaking them hips, shaking them hips, shaking them. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. Welcome to Publicly Buzzed, folks. Oh, we got bit. Oh my God, by a snake. Definitely got bit by a snake.
No, that's a stick.
I don't know where the snake went, but I definitely got bit by it. Okay, get the hell out of there.
You got bit by a snake.
Woo! Where did you go? I don't know where I'm lost! Okay.
Yeah.
I see you. I see your name. Going your way. There is snakes.
That's a griffin. It's a flying bird monster.
You nailed that one.
Back legs of a wolf, front legs of a hawk.
This guy loves weed.
Like claws. And it would swoop down to catch its victim. Usually young kids, and it would just tear them apart. And
he's getting a little bit too much pleasure out of talking about griffins tearing people apart. Everybody is. What's going on?
When the griffin got you, all they'd ever find is your shoes.
It's because they're all stoned.
Everyone in that room is stoned out of their minds.
That may be true.
Thank you, Your Honor. Will you please state your name? Yes, it's Amber Laura Hurd. And what is your address? I live in Yucca Valley, California. And how old are you?
I pledged the entirety of the settlement, $7 million to charity, and I intend to fulfill those obligations.
That's not my question.
I use pledge and donation synonymous with one another.
But I don't.
That's the way theirs goes.
I pledged.
Ours goes.
You still haven't donated.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
Oh, let's go out and talk some shit. Yo! Where's that girl at? Where's that gypsy girl at? Yo, uh-oh, there she is. There's a pretty girl. Yeah! Woo! Yeah, boy! I tell you what.
Money, keep it in a safe. If you talking out your ass, I'll pop out with this 30 and boom how. Money, keep it in a safe. If you talking out your ass, I'll pop out with this 30 and boom how.
Getting that butt patted. You getting that butt patted? Yeah. Yeah. She likes that butt patted now.
We'll return after these messages.
Can't stop shaking them hips, shaking them hips, shaking them. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. Welcome to Publicly Buzzed, folks. Oh, we got bit. Oh my God, by a snake. Definitely got bit by a snake.
No, that's a stick.
I don't know where the snake went, but I definitely got bit by it. Okay, get the hell out of there.
You got bit by a snake.
Woo! Where did you go? I don't know where I'm lost! Okay.
Yeah.
I see you. I see your name. Going your way. There is snakes.
That's a griffin. It's a flying bird monster.
You nailed that one.
back legs of a wolf, front legs of a hawk.
This guy loves weed.
Like claws, and it would swoop down to catch its victim, usually young kids, and it would just tear them apart. And
He's getting a little bit too much pleasure out of talking about griffins tearing people apart. Everybody is. What's going on?
When the griffin got you, all they'd ever find is your shoe.
It's because they're all stoned.
Everyone in that room is stoned out of their minds.
That may be true.
Thank you, Your Honor. Will you please state your name? Yes, it's Amber Laura Hurd. And what is your address? I live in Yucca Valley, California. And how old are you?
I pledged the entirety of the settlement, $7 million to charity, and I intend to fulfill those obligations.
That's not my question.
I use pledge and donation synonymous with one another.
But I don't.
That's the way theirs goes.
I pledged.
Ours goes.
You still haven't donated.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
Oh, let's go out and talk some shit. Yo! Where's that girl at? Where's that gypsy girl at? Yo, uh-oh, there she is. There's a pretty girl. Yeah! Woo! Yeah, boy! I tell you what.
Money, keep it in a safe. If you talking out your ass, I'll pop out with this 30 and boom, how. Money, keep it in a safe. If you talking out your ass, I'll pop out with this 30 and boom, how.
Getting that butt patted. You getting that butt patted? Yeah. Yeah. She likes that butt patted now.
We'll return after these messages.
Can't stop shaking them hips, shaking them hips, shaking them. Ding, 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 ding. Okay.
Welcome to Publicly Buzzed, folks. Oh, I got bit!
Oh my God, by a snake! Definitely got bit by a snake. No, that's a stick.
I don't know where the snake went, but I definitely got bit by it. Okay, get the hell out of there.
You got bit by a snake.
Woo! Where did you go? I don't know where I'm lost! Okay. I see you. I see your name. Coming your way. There is snakes.
That's a griffin. It's a flying bird monster.
You nailed that one.
Back legs of a wolf, front legs of a hawk.
This guy loves weed.
Like claws, and it would swoop down to catch its victim, usually young kids, and it would just tear them apart. And
He's getting a little bit too much pleasure out of talking about griffins tearing people apart. Everybody is. What's going on?
When the griffin got you, all they'd ever find is your shoe.
It's because they're all stoned.
Everyone in that room is stoned out of their minds.
That may be true.
Thank you, Your Honor. Will you please state your name? Yes, it's Amber Laura Hurd. And what is your address? I live in Yucca Valley, California. And how old are you?
I pledged the entirety of the settlement, $7 million to charity, and I intend to fulfill those obligations.
That's not my question.
I use pledge and donation synonymous with one another.
But I don't.
That's the way theirs goes.
I pledged.
Ours goes.
You still haven't donated.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
Oh, let's go out and talk some shit. Yo! Where's that girl at? Where's that gypsy girl at? Yo, uh-oh, there she is. There's a pretty girl. Yeah! Woo! Yeah, boy! I tell you what.
Money, keep it in a safe. If you talking out your ass, I'll pop out with this 30 and boom, how. Ain't money, keep it in a safe. If you talking out your ass, I'll pop out with this 30 and boom, how.
Getting that butt padded. Ain't getting that.
All right, sorry about that. Gypsy had to go out just for a second. Let's get right back into this. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my new videos there. I don't know how many times I can do that and make it fresh and new, but we'll keep trying. We didn't lose anybody there.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please be seated. Then, sir, would you tell us your name and spell your last name for us?
Tracy Edwards, Edwards.
Mr. Edwards, you're going to ask you to speak up very loudly into the microphone. Okay. I would like to know in what state do you reside at the present time?
Louisiana.
And how old are you, sir?
32.
32? And you are single?
Yes.
You were in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on July the 22nd, 1991?
Yes.
And at or about that time, on that late afternoon, did you have occasion to see a person that you knew at that time or subsequently learned was a fellow by the name of Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes.
And you know that Mr. Dahmer you're speaking about is the defendant in this case to my right, correct?
Yes.
And that made a record I showed the identification.
Sir, would you indicate where Mr. Dahmer is seated in the courtroom?
It's over there.
Right in the middle between my two associates?
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
The record should reflect the defendant's been identified.
He can't even look his way. Like, this one's going to be rough, guys.
Now, Mr. Edwards, you and I met for the first time last evening.
Yes.
And you came up from Louisiana at my request with your attorney.
Right.
Mr. Syed, S-Y-E-D, Salet, S-A-L-E-T.
That's correct.
And you came up here to testify to the events, as you recall them, that occurred on the late afternoon, early evening, early morning hours of July the 22nd and the morning of July the 23rd, 1991.
That's correct.
So that you know, Mr. Edwards, your name is known to the jury because there has been testimony concerning what happened to you and at the apartment of Mr. Dahmer.
Born in Mind of Monsters, awesome name.
Dahmer. Do you understand?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Where did you know Mr. Dahmer by name prior to that date?
I've seen him a couple of times before then. I didn't know his name personally.
All right. Did you ever talk to him before that date?
Speaking to him, saying hello as he passed by. Yeah.
Just casual, friendly?
Casual, yeah, friendly.
Hellos.
Hellos, yeah.
Where was it that you saw him in the late afternoon, early morning hours of July the 22nd?
Grand Avenue Mall.
And that was in Milwaukee.
Correct.
Downtown on Wisconsin Avenue.
Wisconsin, correct.
Were you with somebody or were you alone?
A couple of our friends, yeah.
Okay, so the record is absolutely clear. You are not a homosexual, are you?
No, not at all.
Okay. So you were with a couple of your buddies, were you?
That's correct.
And what were you doing?
Now, again, this goes back to the time period, right? Think about why he doesn't want to admit to being a homosexual here. It's the atmosphere of not only the United States, but the world. I mean, it's fucked up, man. Like, this testimony is really messed up. Like, 'cause he can't even really truly be fully himself or truthful here.
We was drinking beer, just talking, hanging out, you know.
About 6 o'clock at night, was this?
Yeah, about 6:15, whatever.
Did you have occasion then to see Mr. Dahmer?
Yeah, he approached us eventually and started talking to us, yeah.
Were you three black males?
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, Vicky became a member while I was gone? I must have missed that. Oh, man. I don't see that here right now, though. Well, sometimes it doesn't always pop through. Vicky, welcome to becoming a member. Appreciate it. Oh, and also, let me get that out from behind that picture as well. We'll get it together. We'll get it together.
Welcome to the party, pal.
And you got to get your beers. You got to get your beers, Vicky. You got to get your beers. The Satisfying Pour. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Anybody that becomes a member, again, you're a producer of this content, of this channel. That's amazing. Yeah, give them the beers. Give her the beers, guys. Vicky gets the beers. Missed that one. Sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know, Samantha.
One white, 2 black male.
Okay. So you're friends?
Yeah, my best friend was white, yeah.
When he came up and started talking to you, what is it that Mr. Dahmer said to you?
He said he was just in the city from
Welcome,
Chicago.
Vicky. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why that didn't come through like that, but welcome. Thank you so much again.
He was taking care of her sick grandmother, I believe, in West Allis. Yeah.
And did he have any further conversation with you and your friends?
Yeah, he was just talking. He said he was a professional photographer. He usually pays people for pictures and stuff like that if anybody was interested in making money at that time.
To have to pose for pictures?
Yeah.
Did he describe the kind of pictures that you were going to be posing for if you chose to take him up on the offer?
He said nude.
Nude.
Right.
Now, after he said that to you, what did you and your friends do?
They were just talking, discussing it, you know, seeing what was going on, you know.
And what did you end up doing? Did you remain at Grand Avenue or did you go somewhere else?
We proceeded from there. He said he was going to buy all his guys beer, rum, and Coke, you know, watch videos or something like that.
Rum and Coke, did you say?
Yeah, we went to the liquor store on Wisconsin Avenue, 7th and Wisconsin Avenue.
So you walked from Grand Avenue down to 7th and Wisconsin?
Yeah, up, so to speak. Yeah,
at that
between 5th and 6th, 7th, something like that.
Okay.
I'm not really sure.
The general area of 6th
Right.
or 7th in Wisconsin.
Right.
Was it going to be the 3 of you and Mr. Dahmer were going to stay together, or was it agreed upon that one or others of you were going to go with Mr. Dahmer, or was there no agreement?
They were going to meet up with us eventually later on that evening.
Hey, Strict Dan, I'll see
Meet
you,
up
bud.
with who?
Jeffrey at his apartment,
Put it in the
but
chat
he
there.
gave them the wrong address at that
Put it out
time.
there again.
Okay, so did you, the 3 of you and your 2 friends and Mr. Dahmer,
Oh, morning, Strict 9. How you doing? Hope you're having a good Sunday. Murder Church.
walked down to a liquor store, and what happened when you got to the liquor store?
I saw my brother. We started talking. At this time, Jeff was talking to my other friends.
So you say you saw your brother. He wasn't one of the 3 that you were with?
No,
then?
no.
You saw him on the street?
Yeah. He approached
Okay, so
me.
you had conversation.
Right.
Okay, did anyone go into a liquor store and buy anything?
Strict, now we need a Unabomber shout out, and he's got the AI Bob emojis on there. Now, I am going to be doing a Unabomber episode this week, I believe. I'm going to try to put that together. So yeah, keep eyes out on that as well.
Mr. Dahmer brought liquor. Yeah.
So he went
and
into
beer.
a liquor store?
Right.
And when he came out, who was still there?
Okay. When he came out, we were all still there.
And then what happened? Tell us what happened then.
Okay, he was talking to them. Then we were gonna go up the street. I was gonna go home and change and everything at this time. So we proceeded. We caught a cab at the bus station, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what was your plan as you were in front of that liquor store after Mr. Dahmer came out with the liquor and you had been talking to your brother? What was your plan? What were you going to do? You say you were going to go home and change clothes?
Yeah, and eventually I was gonna go over there, you know, and maybe check out what he was talking about making the money at that time.
So your interest was in making some money?
Right.
Did he tell you how much you would be paid if you did pose for him?
He said $100 for.
You
for a
had
shot.
no idea, did you, that this was for any homosexual
No,
conduct?
he didn't come across like that, and he didn't even act like it at that time.
Okay. So now your friends are still there, and you're going to go home and you order a cab for the over at the bus depot. What happens? Tell us what happens.
Okay, and then me and Dahmer, my friends say they're gonna go and change and call up the girls, and we'll meet up later on, you know. Yeah.
Was there an address given as to where you were going?
He gave them some address that wasn't correct, you know.
You later found that out?
Right, from my friends, yeah.
What happened then? Who else remained there when this was all transpired? Just you and Mr. Dahmer, or you, Mr. Dahmer, and others?
After it all had transpired, it was me and Mr. Dahmer in the cab, you know, leaving.
You met up at about 6:15, 6:15. What time is it now, at this time?
It's maybe 6:30 as we get to 26th in Wisconsin.
So you stop at 26th in Wisconsin, and what happens there?
Okay, we get out the cab then, and then he suggested he go to the store and get cigarettes before he went to his apartment.
And after he did that, did you go to his apartment?
Yeah.
What route?
Through the alleys, through the back way. We entered the back.
Was there any discussion as to why you were taking that route?
Said it was safer, people wouldn't bother us or whatever.
At the time that you were walking with him towards his apartment, what was your plans on doing when you got to the apartment?
Really drinking the beer, I wasn't really sure if I was going to pose or not, you know. Yep, I wasn't really sure at that point. No.
You at least were contemplating maybe you would.
Well, yeah, I was going to make up my mind once I got there or whatever, you know.
Were you in need of money?
Yeah, I just started working, and the offer sounded good at that time.
Okay. Now, when you got to his apartment, how was he acting? Tell us about his... tell me about his demeanor. You know what I mean by that, Mr. Edwards?
Yes,
how was he
I understand.
acting?
Just like a normal, everyday person, you know, friendly.
Yeah, this testimony right here goes against the insanity plea altogether, right? Acting normal at the bar. He knew what he was doing. He knew that he had to get him into his apartment. He had to get him over, whether that's for the pictures. Hey, I can pay you for some modeling. You know, you're a good looking guy. He's in the gay bars doing this as well. He's a gay dude. And then he's courting other gay men in gay bars, trying to, again, get them back to his apartment so he can ultimately drug them and keep them forever is what the fuck was happening here. But yeah, Tracy Edwards, lucky enough to actually be the last person here that did actually get away. This one right here, this testimony, you know, really goes completely, wholeheartedly against the insanity plea. It's hard to say, you know, this guy was crazy when you break down how he lured these guys there.
Good conversation once he was talking about the military, things of that nature. Yeah.
Had you been in the military?
My father retired in the Air Force, so I've been to several different bases. I was born on an Army base in Fort Carson.
And that's the kind of thing you were talking to him
It's
about.
like a family thing, you know, so I know a lot about it.
Had he been drinking alcohol?
Yeah, I consumed some. He was drinking beer at the time when I first met.
The time that you were like going to his apartment, was he intoxicated?
No.
Had he been drinking?
Yeah, I've been drinking a couple of beers.
How about you? Were you intoxicated?
No, not at all.
Had you had something to drink?
I sipped maybe a little beer, my friend's beer, that was it. Yeah.
All right, now you get to the apartment. Do you go in the back way?
Yes, correct.
You went up to the apartment. Tell us what happens when you get up to the apartment. Tell us what you observed, what your senses told you.
Okay, first of all, it seemed like a normal apartment. When we got inside, he turned off burglar alarms. I asked him why. First, it was a foul odor, okay?
Tell us about that. What kind of an odor?
It was just like an odor. I didn't quite know what it was. You know, he told me a sewer pipe had broke and management would take care of it. Yeah.
And did you accept that?
Yes, because I worked around at construction companies before, and when pipes bust, sewer pipes bust, they smell, you know.
Okay.
So I brought that.
So you say your first thing you did was notice the odor. He opened the door to the apartment?
Yes.
And you walked in?
Yes.
He turned off something. What did he turn off?
Alarms.
Did you ask him about that?
Yeah, and he said the part of the neighborhood he was in, he was protecting his property, things like that, cameras, VCRs, TVs, things of that nature.
Did you accept that?
Yes, I did.
After getting in the apartment, can you generally describe the apartment, both the apartment that you saw then and the apartment that the other parts of the apartment you saw? Tell the jury what the apartment was like.
It was like normal, pretty decent apartment, had nice things in it. You know, it had certain boxes sitting on the front, neurotic acid boxes. I asked him about it. He said he cleaned bricks with those, you know, which you can use that type of acid to clean bricks, so I brought that also.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you just said. You asked him about some boxes?
Yeah, that were laying in the front living room floor.
And what did he tell you about those?
That he cleaned brick with the neurotic acid. Okay.
Now, was the apartment small, large, medium? Give us the size.
Kind of medium size, yeah.
All right. Now, when you went in there, you went in, as you entered, were you in the living room?
Yes.
And what was the living room? What did you see in there? The boxes you told us about?
The boxes, there's a couch, there's a fish tank there also, a black lamp. Yeah,
the smell would be the worst though, right? You know it's absolutely rancid in there. It's got drums full of fucking liquefied human corpses.
A little table-like on the left side.
Could you see a refrigerator?
Yeah, I could see the refrigerator on my left.
Was it close to the living room?
Yeah, maybe 8 feet from the living room.
So it was just off the living room?
Right.
Now, did you stay in that room or did you go to another room right away?
We stayed in that room for a while.
And where did you sit, if you did?
Okay, at the end of the sofa, like...
Doing the questioning, Strychnine. Gerald Boyle currently.
Amount. This is a sofa. I was at this end, and he was at this side.
Referring to the jury, I mean, the witness box, if that were a sofa, he would be at that end. That is the end where he's seated on the witness stand, which would be the part closest to the judge. Is that right?
That's correct.
And where did Mr. Dahmer, what did he do?
He sat like here, maybe a couple feet from me.
Not
on my
close
left.
to you?
Maybe 2 feet.
You in fear of anything at that time?
Not at all.
Okay, and what did the two of you do?
Okay, he said we were still talking, chatting, you know. He asked me, was I interested in doing the photography? You know, I told him I was still contemplating, so therefore he offered me a beer and a rum and Coke mixture at that point.
Now, you're fully clothed.
Yes.
Okay, and you're sitting on a couch.
Right.
And he talks to you about this posing, and you weren't sure you're going to do it.
Right.
How much had you been offered to do the posing?
$100.
Okay. And when he brings you the beer, he brings you rum and Coke?
Yeah, he brings the beer first, and then he brings the rum and Coke.
How big of a glass?
Maybe that big. Yeah.
About 4 inches high?
About 4 inches, yeah, 3.5, something like that.
Did you ever taste it?
Yeah, I took a few sips.
Was it strong, weak, medium, or just about right?
I'm not a big liquor drinker, so it didn't taste that good to me.
Didn't taste good to you? You don't know if it was strong or not?
Strong or not, no, because I'm...
What did Mr. Dahmer do? Did he likewise have a drink?
No, I think, yeah, right, a beer, but I don't think he drank all of his drink at that time.
Did he have any rum with him?
I just noticed the beer, right.
Okay. What time are we talking about now that you're sitting on the couch and you get the beer? You got over there about what time, and how long after this?
It was about before 7, quarter to 7, something like that.
So you're sitting on the couch, he brings you a beer and rum and Coke, what happens?
Okay, then we just study talking and everything, you know.
General talk?
General talk. Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah, then I was just, I don't know, getting a little agitated maybe, you know, because of the smell and things. And then he threw my conversation off talking about the fish in the fish tank, you know.
Okay, when you start talking about the fish in the fish tank, do you bring that up or does he?
He does.
And what do you do when he does that?
I turn to the right, like the fish tank is here, I'm turning all the way over here.
You turn to your right to look at it?
To look at the fish tank, right.
And when that happens, what happens to you?
All of a sudden a handcuff and a knife is pulled on me. Yeah.
Handcuff is placed on your body? Where?
On my left wrist.
And you see a knife?
Yeah, the knife, yeah.
Now, at that moment, what do you do?
First I feel fear, then I ask him what's going on. You know, this is not necessary, you know, to pull a knife on me at that point.
Are you afraid?
Yes.
Do you have any reason to know why he did that?
None whatsoever.
Did you have any idea at that time it was going to happen?
No.
Tell me about his demeanor at that time when you looked and realized he had a knife and you in a cuff. What was, you were only cuffed on one wrist?
One wrist, yeah.
What was happening to the other part of the handcuff?
Okay, he had it in his hand.
He was holding it?
Holding that in the wrist, yeah.
Where was the knife? In the other hand?
The knife was like he had here. The knife was in his hand. He had it on me like this.
Let the record reflect he was holding the knife in his right hand as he showed it, holding the cuff in his left hand. Is that right? Right. And your left hand is cuffed?
Yeah, right.
Where do you have the knife? What kind of a knife was it?
It was like a military knife, a machete of some type. Yeah, he had it lowered right up under my rib cage, you know. Like
so
in
he
the
had
back, somewhere in the back here.
He had it pointed at your rib cage?
Yeah.
Did you feel it, touch it?
Yeah, he had it on me. He had it against my body.
What happened? What was going through your mind the moment that happened when you realized you had a knife at your side and a handcuff on your hand? What did you think?
I think, like, you know, what's going on, you know? This guy is so nice, and all of a sudden, you know, it's like he's pulling knives and handcuffs and all on me, you know?
What'd you do? What'd you say to him?
I asked him what the problem was, you know, that it's not necessary to do this, you know?
What'd he say?
He told me at that point if I wouldn't do what he said, he would kill me, yeah.
Now, tell us about his demeanor at the time that you look at him and you say, what's going on? You don't have to do this. What happens to Mr. Dahmer? What's he like?
It's like not the same person that we met at Grand Avenue Mall.
How does he different?
His face structure seemed different, you know. His body structure is like it wasn't him anymore, you know. It's like it was a totally different guy there.
So he told you if you didn't do what he told you to do, he'd hurt you?
He'd hurt me.
What'd you do? What happened? Tell us what happened step by step as best you can remember.
And then all of a sudden he kind of calms down, you know, and then he said he has a key in the bedroom, so we proceed to the bedroom.
The key to the handcuffs?
Right.
So you believed he was going to take them off?
Yeah, at that point I had to go along with this guy, you know, and then if I had to find out, so I walked back there with him. He kind of guides me back there, you know.
Guides you back with the cuff and the knife?
Yeah, right.
And you go into the bedroom?
Right.
What do you see in the bedroom?
A big, about 50, 60 gallon drum barrel, whatever.
Do you ever see a 50, 60 drum barrel in anybody's bedroom before?
Not at all.
Do you have any idea? Did you ask him what it was?
No. At that point, I asked no questions at that time. You know.
Was there a bed in that room?
Yes.
How was the bed? Was it made, unmade? What did
it was unmade.
What did you see on the bed, if anything?
Something like a stain or whatever, yeah, on the bed.
What did you think it was?
At that point in time, I wasn't sure.
What did you do when you got in the bedroom as he's holding on to the cuff and the knife? What did you do?
Studied us talking, trying to be friends with him, you know.
Did you remain standing? Did you sit down?
He made me sit down at that point. We both sit on the bed. Whatever.
Was it at the foot of the bed, side of the bed, head of the bed?
Maybe halfway between.
Did that room have a TV set in it?
Yes.
Was there anything going on the TV?
Yeah, the Exorcist movies was playing at that time.
There was an Exorcist movie on?
Yeah.
You know which one of them?
The name, I'm not sure. I think it's thru. I'm not sure which one. Right.
So there was a movie. Did you know it to be part of television or VCR?
VCR, normally that's not on regular television, so I thought it was VCR.
You knew there was a movie showing?
Right.
Did you see him put it on, or was it on?
No. When we first got into the apartment, he went through the back, to the back bedroom. Maybe he put it on then, I'm not sure.
Okay. And then what happened? You're both sitting on the bed?
Yes.
Are you still in handcuffs?
Yes.
Is he holding the handcuff?
Right.
Do you still have the knife?
Right.
Is it pointed at your side, as you've told us before?
Right.
You trying to be cool?
Very much so.
You're not fighting with them?
No.
What's your intention? What are you planning on doing?
Getting away. I was contemplating on at the point jumping out the window. Yep. I was basically talking with this person, trying to let him know I was his friend. Yeah.
As you were sitting there on the bed, when he had you by the handcuff and a knife at your side, at that time, which would have been maybe 7 o'clock?
Something like that.
What impression was made upon your mind by the conduct, action, manner, expression, and conversation that you observed of Mr. Dahmer?
His frame of mind is what you want to know, right? Okay, he acted, at times he would go through like different changes with me, you know.
Tell us about that.
1 minute he's like nice, then he was telling he didn't want people to leave him or abandon him, things of this nature, you know. Yeah.
Well, what did you think about him as a person? What impression was made on your mind of this fellow that you're dealing with here?
Yeah, that at times he wasn't himself, and then at times he was like a nice guy, you know. He would come and go different times, you know, throughout the whole time. Then he would like sit, being quiet at times, watching a movie, wanting me to watch the movie, you know, and just doing little tanning sounds, you know.
Did you observe him watching the movie and how he would react to the movie?
Right, he would like just start rocking back and forth when he, you know, certain parts of the movie or whatever.
You have to say, what did he say, Madam?
It was like chanting at certain times and rocking back and forth, right?
Tell us about his chanting. What was that all about?
I'm not even sure, sir, but it was just like, I can't tell you the words. I couldn't understand what he was saying at that time.
Can you mimic him? How it sounded?
It was like a slow slur, like, some of that nature, some close like that, I'm not sure.
Did it keep on for a period of time?
Off and on throughout the ordeal.
And how about the movement back and forth? How was that being effectuated?
Just like back and forth, he would do it every now and then. You know?
Just as you are rocking in your chair?
Like this.
And chanting?
And chanting.
Was there any parts of the movie that was going on that you saw that he said anything about?
It was like the part about the preacher that used to be a preacher that had got possessed, and that it would seem like he was like interested in that part. That part had his attention more than anything. You know?
Well, tell us about what you mean by that. What impressions were made upon your mind when this was going on as to had his attention? How did he appear to you?
It appeared like it was like he wanted to mimic it or be like that part, you know, being demonized or whatever in that nature.
I'm sorry, I missed you.
Yeah, like he wanted that type of movie, that part, certain parts of that part interested him. You know, it was like he changed with it at times. Then he would get more aggressive, try to get me to handcuff myself, both hands. And he's told me it made him feel more dominant at that time.
Okay, did you and he move off of the bed at any time?
Yes, he wanted me to lay flat down, stomach down on the floor at that time.
Did you at any time go to the bathroom, use the washroom, prior to the time that he asked you to lay down on the floor?
No.
All right, tell us what happened how did that happen that he told you to lay down on the floor?
You know, he told me to lay down face down, put both of my hands behind my back because he changed again at that point, like he got more aggressive at that time.
Okay, now, but tell us, did he still have the knife out?
Yes, he still had the knife with him.
And what did you do?
Okay, I kind of like laid on my sides. For some reason, I guess God told me not to lay flat down or let this person handcuff me, so I didn't.
So you were trying to stop that from happening, but you got down on the floor.
Right.
What did he do?
He kind of laid across me, put his head across my chest at that point.
And what was he doing with his head?
Pardon me?
What did it appear to you he was doing with his head? What was he trying to do?
Like he was listening to my heart, because at a point he told me he was going to eat my heart at that point.
He said he was going to eat your heart?
Yes, that's correct.
Did he still have the knife?
Yeah.
Where was the knife pointed?
When I was on the floor, he had it pointed at my groin area at that time.
One knife?
He had several, and then he slid one. I managed to slide one underneath the bed. And I guess during a point of time through an ordeal, he didn't know where the knife was, so I didn't know if he felt that was a threat or not.
So he still had a knife, you're on the floor. How long does he lay on top of you trying to hear your heart as you've described it?
Maybe a minute and a half.
And then what did you do then?
I knew something was about to happen, so I suggested that I go to the bathroom. I had to use the bathroom at that time.
And what did he do?
He kind of guided me to the bathroom.
So when you say he guided, you still had hold of your handcuff?
Yes.
And you went to the bathroom?
Right.
Did you urinate?
Yeah.
Were you able to utilize your own zipper, or did he touch you at all?
Touched me in no way. Didn't attempt to look. He just held me in back, you know.
So in other words, he didn't try to look at what your penis looked like or anything?
Not at all.
So after urinating, did you think that you were going to be the victim of, did he ask to engage in any homosexual acts with you?
None whatsoever.
Okay, so now you leave the bathroom and what happens?
Okay, then we go back into the bedroom, you know. It was like different time spans. We were talking about him losing his job. Then he would come to the person that I was first with, you know. And then at certain points he would change. You know, at first he was telling me about how people didn't care for him and things of this nature. And I was trying to comfort him, letting him know that I was a friend, you know, that I wasn't going to try to run away from him or nothing like that.
You were being cool.
I guess God, you can say that, because I had no control. I don't know.
Did this continue on for a long period of time during the night?
Yes, apparently so. Time seemed to, I don't know. But I stayed in there that long, so it had to be going on throughout the whole ordeal, which it was. So time just, it happened like that.
And all this time you're trying to hold him down?
Yeah, certain points, right.
How often would he go in and out of these moods?
Sir, at the time spans I couldn't really tell you, but like he would I guess if you want to put it together in time, every 30 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that, you know. And then he would have moods of being just silent, you know. And I wouldn't say anything, try to provoke him or say the wrong thing. I would be silent with him.
Okay. So you just let him be alone. Was that movie on the whole time, a long time?
It was on a pretty good period of time, yeah. And when it went off, I couldn't tell you.
Did he continue to chant from time to time?
Yes, it happened several times throughout the ordeal.
Now, when he would watch the movie, did you notice when he would go into this thing that you told us where he would really become fixed on the movie screen? What was happening? How often would that happen?
Throughout the movie, maybe every 15 or 20 minutes, and then he would turn around and try to ask me to put both of my hands behind my back, and I wouldn't, do it. I would talk to him. I'd tell him, you can trust me, you don't have to do this, and that would calm him down a little bit.
He had the knife the whole time.
Right.
He's watching the movie, and he becomes very interested in the movie.
Right.
You don't do anything, just sit there.
Just sit there and be quiet.
And then he would start conversation with you again.
Yeah, he was like you're gonna have to do this and that, Then he told me at a point I was gonna have to kill him, or he was gonna have to kill me at one point.
Were you and he drinking during this time?
No.
So he wasn't running out, bringing you out and getting beers and coming back?
No, I would have been out the window at that point.
Sure.
If he would have.
Did he, when he was fixed, I'm trying to get some words to understand, was he intoxicated?
He had been drinking, but as far as being intoxicated, he was not staggering or anything of that nature.
But you know that some people, when they have too much to drink, change their moods. Was that the kind of mood changes he was having, or a different kind of mood change?
I think this was like more of an inner mood change than an alcoholic mood change.
What kind of mood?
It's like
inner mood.
Yeah, person change, not alcohol change.
What did you think about this guy? What was going through your mind as to who you were sitting next to, who was doing all these things?
A bizarre individual, someone that was very confused at this time.
Now there came a time when you went to the washroom again.
Right, I suggested, because he had started getting aggressive a little bit again. I suggested go to the bathroom. He let me stay in there by myself while he stayed outside the door at that time.
And what happened then?
And then I told him, I was contemplating, I was asking God, shall I make my move now? And I was gonna just jump out the window. But when I got out, for some reason, I asked, could I have another beer? Yeah.
And what did he do?
And he reaches over, he guides me over and reaches in and get a beer.
He still got you on the cuff.
Yeah, and then he tells me, I told him I want to sit in the front because it's an air conditioner. And I was just going to try to jump out the window or go for the door or whatever, and because the back bedroom didn't have an air conditioner, only in the front. So I suggested we sit on the couch. I had unbuttoned my shirt to try to make him feel more at ease. And then I just sat on the couch and he just started going out of himself again.
Going out of himself?
Yeah, he was paying me no attention at that time.
Like he wasn't there?
He started the chanting again, and it's just sitting there, And then I just, for some reason, I said, well, I need to go to the bathroom again, and he didn't follow me at that point. So I reached up, I got up, and then I hit him, and I ran out.
So you hit him?
Right.
Did you have any other belongings there?
Yeah, I have my bag right there at the end of the couch. I sit in exactly the same place I sit when I went in there.
So when you got up, he let go of your cuff to let you go to the bathroom again?
He didn't even, he just let me stay there. I was going to go for the window. At that point, he didn't even have the cuff. It's like I wasn't even there anymore.
Yeah. And when you saw that, what'd you do?
I just seized the opportunity. I said, well, at least I'm going to die trying. I'm not just going to sit here,
What'd you do, son?
I hit him, and I ran towards the door, and he was right there, tried to grab me, get me back in there.
And what happened?
Then I made it outside.
So he wasn't able to bring you back in?
Bring me back in there, no.
He tried?
He tried.
And as you left that apartment, as you got away from him, I'm going to ask you again, what impressions were made on your mind by the conduct of Jeffrey Dahmer, by the actions of Jeffrey Dahmer, by the manner, expressions, and conversations of Jeffrey Dahmer that you observed? Can you give us some words?
It's like I told the policeman that this freak, this crazy guy, was trying to hurt me. Yeah.
Did you run out of the building?
Yes, I did.
Did you summon help?
Yes.
Milwaukee Police Department?
That's correct.
Did they come back there with you to the apartment?
Right.
Did you eventually go back into the apartment with the Milwaukee police officers?
Yes.
And then he was arrested?
Right.
You gave a statement to the Milwaukee police a few hours later?
Yeah, I guess you could say a few hours, yeah.
Yeah, this one's brutal, guys. Yeah, if anyone needs to take a second, if you need to leave for a second, I completely understand that. Again, this is my second full-time watching this, and I'm sure I've seen clips before that. But yeah, this one is brutal. As you can see, I mean, the pause is perfect there. This is absolutely, he's reliving every moment, and he has to, you know, they're asking him these questions, and it makes sense. It's in the trial, but it's absolutely devastating. You know, this guy was literally, his life was in seconds, minutes, moments of being taken by somebody that had taken many other young men's lives previously. So, I mean, this is crazy. I mean, could you even imagine being in the situation where it was this close, and then you got to go out and then in front of the world, right? This is a massive publicized case. This is huge. Okay. Even the part where he says, "I am not gay, sir." He is probably a gay man, right? It's the way that the country and the world was in the early 90s, coming out of the late 80s with the AIDS epidemic that was going on, and just the way that everyone basically looked at homosexuals at this point in time. It was fucked up. It's why the cops kept fucking this up. Dahmer played into that. He knew exactly what he was doing, which again leads to why he isn't insane and why he did need to be in prison after this. But again, if anyone needs to take a break, completely understand, completely get it. It's brutal. This clip is almost over there. About 55 seconds left on this one. We'll be going to the next one, but. Same, Fallen. Same.
Mr. Edwards, through your lawyer, I had you come to Wisconsin to testify.
That's correct.
Other than your expenses, you're not being paid anything, correct? Is that true?
That's true.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you.
Mr. McCann, how long do we anticipate the cross-examination of this witness will
I'd say
take?
at least half an hour, Your Honor.
Okay. That being the case, I think it's appropriate that we take a recess at this time. About 15 minutes. Court's in recess.
Yeah, and the next one in the clip here, I know that they just said that there would be a cross here, but the next one in line, number 9, is actually Dr. Ellen Holstler Sturry. I'm probably butchering that, but anybody caught the beginning of the show, this is a lady that is on the state side here that they brought in. And this is a 26-minute video, and yeah, we'll keep going on through this thing. We won't take a break this time. Again, thank you everyone for hanging out, being here. Appreciate it. Make sure you hit the likes. Make sure you're sharing this out to your community. Share this out on Twitter, on Facebook. YouTube really likes that. It helps us out here on the channel and helps get us in the algorithm. Helps us continue to grow. And if you aren't subbed up, please sub up. Make sure the 3 little dots on the side are clicked and all notifications are clicked as well, because YouTube is really notoriously bad about letting folks know whenever I make community posts, go live, or post videos. Stay in touch with us on Twitter as well, folks. I'm posting on Twitter pretty much every day. And yeah, appreciate everyone for hanging out with me here. Let me get that off the screen here. Boom. And we will, wrong one. We will continue.
We have to wait a moment for the reporter to get back. Mr. Boyle, go ahead.
At this time, Your Honor, since I was busy on other matters, and I didn't wish to take any more of the court's time by asking for additional time, I had my associate, Scott Hansen, prepare the proffer of proof relative to Mr. Ressler being a hypothetical expert witness. And I asked Mr. Hansen to make an oral proffer of proof to effectuate that, because I think I know which way the court is leaning, and I don't want to take up more time than is necessary to put it on the record, so I'm going to have Mr. Hansen to flip it.
Your Honor, if it pleases the court, the first thing that I'd like to do is have marked as an exhibit Mr. Ressler's statement of personal data. It's been marked as defendant's exhibit number 21, and I'll show that to Mr. Hand. I will...
Any objection to Exhibit 21 being received in evidence?
No, sir. I believe he has a copy of that already. I would offer that to the court as part of our offer of proof. I would indicate that if called to testify, obviously, Mr. Ressler would indicate in his testimony that all of the information contained in that statement of personal data is true and correct. The information relative to his background with the FBI has already been made a part of the record. I won't reiterate that. However, as part of our offer of proof, I would indicate that during the time that he was with the FBI, one of the main projects that Mr. Ressler worked on was an extensive study of 36 serial and sexual killers with 118 known victims and 250 suspected victims. The study was conducted from 1977 to 1984.
I think he was beaten to death, Kalen. When he was in prison, do we know if he was beaten to death or shanked or stabbed? I think he was beaten to death with a mop handle, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty brutal and deservedly brutal, right?
Follow-up work which continues to the present date. That as part of that initial study, Mr. Ressler personally interviewed at least a third of the killers studied in that study, including such serial and sexual killers as John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, David Berkowitz, who's also known as the son of Sam killer, Edmund Kemper, Richard Chase, Herbert Mullen, Richard Speck, and others. That since that initial study, he's personally interviewed additional serial killers, sexual killers, and other violent criminals. That as a result of all of his research, Mr. Ressler has developed expertise in classifying sexual and serial killers as being either organized, disorganized, or mixed. That if he were asked a hypothetical question, which this will take me some time to get out because obviously there are a number of assumptions that would have to be included in this hypothetical question. I'm going to list all of the assumptions that would be included in that hypothetical question. They would be as follows: that if there were an individual whose identity were unknown, who was known to have committed 17 murders, including one in 1978, one in 1987, two in 1988, one in 1989, 4 in 1990, and 8 in 1991. That some, including the first 2 of those, were spontaneous, others were planned, that all but one were committed at his residence, that almost all were committed by strangulation, that he used drugs to incapacitate his victims, that he engaged in no sadistic acts, that he engaged in sex acts with the victims after death, including masturbating on and into the bodies, that he cut open and dismembered the bodies, that he disposed of body parts in the trash at his residence, that he kept skulls and body parts from most of his victims and masturbated using them, that towards the end he left bodies and body parts in his apartment where a visitor could easily find them, that his crime scene was sloppy with blood and body parts left around the apartment, that he took photos of his victims to relive his fantasies, that he consumed the body parts of some of his victims, that with several of his later victims he drilled holes in their heads while drugged and poured liquid into their skulls in an effort to create a zombie who would follow his wishes, that as his crimes progressed, they increased in frequency and sloppiness, that the sloppiness included inviting a victim into his apartment while the body of a previous victim was still there, that the sloppiness also included leaving a victim in a drugged but unrestrained situation in his apartment for several hours while he was not present, and also that he tended to depersonalize his victims, tried not to get to know them by name. If Mr. Ressler were given a hypothetical question making those assumptions and asking whether he were able, using those assumptions, to determine or form an opinion to a reasonable degree of professional certainty as to whether that killer would be classified as organized, disorganized, or mixed, our offer of proof is that Mr. Ressler's answer would be that this killer exhibited characteristics of both organized and disorganized, that he would have classified this killer as mixed at the beginning but gravitating downward towards a disorganized classification, particularly in the last year of his crimes, that Mr. Ressler's testimony would be that the crimes show an increasing mental decompensation by the end of his crimes. Also, Your Honor, I would offer the following additional information, which is that Mr. Ressler would also be willing to testify that he has personally interviewed the defendant, Jeffrey Dahmer, that he's reviewed police reports and other documents relating to this case, and that based upon his personal knowledge of the defendant and the defendant's activities, that he would classify the defendant in exactly the same way as he classified this person.
Just real quick, I found the original, I think, New York Times December 1st, 1994 article on him actually being killed. So let's pull that up while we're talking about that here in the chat. I don't know how descriptive they will get or be. Fuck. Oh, man, there's a paywall behind it. Well, never fucking mind. Damn it. Stupid is I have it over here. I think there's like a limit on how much you can actually... Fuck. Well,
in the hypothetical question that I just stated, and that again this conclusion would be to a reasonable degree of professional certainty. Mr. Ressler would also testify that based upon his knowledge and experience, he knows that killers who are organized are normally found by psychiatrists to be antisocial, and that killers who are disorganized are normally found by psychiatrists to be suffering from some mental illness. That concludes our offer of proof.
Should I just very briefly have Dr. Sturry sworn? I will take less than 5 minutes.
One second.
You solemnly swear that all the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Please proceed. And then would you tell us your name and spell your last name, please?
Yes. My name is Ellen Sturry. My professional name is Ellen Hochstedler Sturry. I'll spell that Hochstedler space Steury.
Who has your vitae with you, Doctor?
No, sir.
You have examined that which has been marked as State's Exhibit 18, which is your vitae, is that correct?
Yes.
And is that vitae accurate?
It is not, it has no inaccuracies on it. It is not completely up to date.
And what have you done in the last 2 years to add to it, very briefly?
I have published papers in an international journal that has to do with corporate crime, and I have published additional work on the mentally disordered in the criminal justice system that has appeared in the Journal of Criminal Law and Criminology.
If it pleases the court, Mr. Boyle will stipulate to the vitae of Dr. Sturry, and I will submit that to the court for admission into evidence of State's Exhibit 18. You are presently... That's your vitae? That's your vitae. I don't have any problems.
It's received.
You are presently teaching at the University of Wisconsin. You're on that faculty, is that correct?
Yes, I am. On the
on
the Faculty of Criminal Justice.
Have you had anything to do with statistics in connection with that work?
Yes, I have. I teach statistics on the undergraduate and graduate level.
On this present semester, are you on leave of some type this semester?
It's not a formal leave. I am not in the classroom because I have administrative-like duties.
At my request, you've examined certain documents and indeed got a document of your own. Is that correct?
Yes.
I've asked you to examine that which has been marked as State's Exhibits, which will show that Mr. Boyle, Exhibit number 24, number 22, and number 23.
Did find here looking at it, looks like that someone tried to slit his throat at one point and was unsuccessful, and it didn't even do much damage at all before the actual guy that beat him to death did. So I think that may be where the confusion came in with the throat slash.
Have you examined these exhibits?
Yes.
Have you examined also portions of a book entitled Sexual Homicide Patterns and Motives by Robert K. Ressler and others?
Yes, I looked at Chapter 8.
I would ask you to leave the court if I could. This is not my book. If we could copy, particularly Chapter 8, and submit it to the court as an exhibit. That would be exhibit number 25, I believe.
Traveling between that for the purpose of
Dr. Story, at my request, you've examined those documents drawn on your own experience, and can you advise the court of what validity there would be with respect to a...
What's stupid is, like, I have two different screens up here, and on this screen, I'm literally looking at it and able to scroll through it and read it. But when I try to, like, bring it over here, there's that weird paywall or whatever. I'll try it again, though. Hold on. Let's see if there's something I'm missing here. Let me Google it here first, actually, because that's all I was doing over here. Holy, Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah, 1994 killed news article. Give me that. Give me this. Here we go. Here we go. That's weird. All right. We bait it. We bait it. Here we go. All right. So yeah, this is the November 29th, New York Times, 1994 article here. Jeffrey Dahmer, whose gruesome exploits of murder, necrophilia, and dismemberment shocked the world in 1991, was attacked and killed today in Wisconsin prison, where he was serving 15 consecutive life terms. Mr. Dahmer was 34, older than any of his victims, who ranged in age from 14 to 33. He died of massive head injuries suffered between 7:50 and 8:10 a.m. when he was found in a pool of blood in a toilet area next to the prison's gym, said Michael Sullivan, secretary of the Wisconsin Department of Corrections. He was pronounced dead shortly after 9 a.m. A bloodied broomstick was found nearby, and a fellow, thought I remembered that correctly, a fellow inmate who was serving life sentence for murder, Christopher J. Scarver, 25, of Milwaukee, is the prime suspect, the authorities said. E. Michael McCann, who we've been seeing in this, who is from the DA, the Milwaukee County District Attorney, who sent Mr. Dahmer to prison in 1992, said this is the last sad chapter in a very sad life. Tragically, Mr. McCann said his parents will have to experience the same loss the families of his victims have experienced. A third inmate, Jesse Anderson, himself a notorious figure in the history of Milwaukee crime and race, was critically injured in the attack. Mr. Sullivan would not comment on a possible motive for the beatings, nor would he say if it was Mr. Dahmer or Mr. Anderson who was the main target of the violence. Mr. Scarver, who is black, was convicted in 1992 of murdering Steve Lohman. He was shot in the head at the Milwaukee office of the Wisconsin Conservation, butchering that, corpse, where he worked. Officials said Mr. Scarver is not eligible for parole until 2042. But both Mr. Dahmer, whose victims were mostly black, Hispanic, and Asian men and boys, and Mr. Anderson, a white man who killed his wife and blamed it on two black men, had badly shaken Milwaukee's racial peace. Mr. McCann said today, I hope there will be no economic return or celebration as a folk hero for the man that killed Jeffrey Dahmer. God forbid, he said, but I would not be surprised if it happened. Mr. Dahmer and the two other inmates had been assigned to clean the toilets and the showers near the gym and had arrived there under guard at 7:50 a.m. Then the inmates were apparently left unattended for up to 20 minutes. They followed procedures, Mr. Sullivan said of the guards. There was no irregular gap in supervision, but there was 20 minutes where there was no supervision. So is that normal? Again, who gives a fuck at this point? The three inmates, all convicted murderers, had been on the routine work detail today for about 3 weeks without incident until today at 8:10 a.m. A guard returned to find Mr. Dahmer bleeding on the floor. The guard sounded the alarm and then found Mr. Anderson several rooms away in the shower area. When Mr. Dahmer arrived at the prison, the Columbia Correctional Institute, about 40 miles north of Madison, his safety was a major concern. The blonde former chocolate factory worker was the most prolific killer in the state's history, so the authorities feared killing him might earn a convict an honored place in the prison world, especially for someone with long sentence and with little to lose. Mr. Dahmer's first year in prison had been spent in protective isolation away from the general inmate population. But in the last year, Mr. Dahmer and the prison authorities had deemed it safe enough for him to be integrated into the general population of 622 inmates. Last July, however, an inmate tried to slash Mr. Dahmer's throat with a plastic homemade knife during a chapel service, murder church. But Mr. Dahmer was not injured, and both he and his keepers determined that the attack was an isolated incident. He never told me he was afraid, said Mr. Stephen Eisenberg, a lawyer representing Mr. Dahmer in several civil suits filed by the families of the victims. This shouldn't have happened. Wisconsin does not have a death penalty. Mr. Dahmer confessed to 17 killings, 16 in Wisconsin, and one, his first, he said, which was in Ohio, a well-to-do suburb of Akron. He pleaded guilty and was convicted of 15 killings in Wisconsin. Prosecutors said there was not enough evidence to charge Mr. Dahmer with the 16th slaying. Mr. Dahmer was also pleaded guilty to the Ohio slaying of a younger hitchhiker. In 1978, Mr. Dahmer met most of his victims at bus stops, bars, malls, and adult bookstores. He then lured them to his apartment. We're kind of learning here. I'm not going to finish this out, but yeah, he taken out pretty much as soon as he got into general population there.
A profiling data to the issue before the court today.
I think it would be a misapplication. It would be unscientific in that application. A typology is a way of summarizing information. It's understandable that one would want to use a summary when there is missing data. When there is no missing data, it does not make sense in many instances to use such a summary. I think it would be like walking backward in order to go forward.
And the information on the profiling, particularly the 36 cases that form the basis of 36 serial killers, is that much of a database in your opinion?
No, it is not, especially when you consider that it may be, well, it is only 25 that apply to serial killers, and we're not sure which of those 25 fall into each of those disorganized and organized and mixed categories.
And does the information that you have on that study indicate that with respect to the 12 that were disorganized, they all involved heterosexual serial killers?
That is what the report indicates, yes.
Do you have any other comment that you wish to make on this study and its proposed application?
Yes, I think that as it is presented in the reports, the characterization of disorganized and organized is drawn only from the crime scene information, and that there is very little in the way of any scientific link to the personality types.
Please report that.
I'd like for the record to ask the doctor a few questions.
Absolutely.
Doctor, did you ever talk to Mr. Ressler about his book?
No, I never have met him until today.
Did you ever make inquiry of anyone in the FBI Behavioral Science Unit as to how they use the concept of organized, disorganized, and mixed?
No, I did not.
So you've never talked to anyone in law enforcement about the concept?
No, I have not.
Prior to today, how many times have you ever discussed the matter of the disorganized, organized, mixed concept reference to the detection of people who may have maybe profiled for law enforcement in determining who the criminal might be?
I have never had occasion to use those exact terms.
Have you ever testified as an expert in a criminal case?
Never.
You are indicating that the database is too small for...
Never testified in a criminal case. Interesting.
Behavioral science people to come up with a concept that you feel can be statistically warranted. Is that correct?
It is an extremely small database. It does suggest that any findings might be unreliable. It is not something that a social scientist would be comfortable with.
And is that because there aren't enough serial killers to study to come up with a larger database in order to come up with better statistical data?
That's certainly one factor.
Sure. So the people in the FBI Behavioral Science Lab, who since 1978 through 1990 were developing some concept to assist local law enforcement, were more apt to come up with false data than correct data as it relates to the mixed organized and disorganized concepts that are promulgated by Mr. Ressler?
Would you rephrase?
Let me ask you if I can. Because the database is 25 or 36, and because the database isn't any larger than that, simply because there haven't been enough people to study who have been serial killers, that their attempts to come up with some ideas relative to the mixed, disorganized, and organized may have been an exercise in futility?
It depends on the use to which it is put, I think.
Let us assume, doctor, that every heterosexual serial killer that is studied is between 30 and 40 years of age, on the basis of a database of 36 studies, would that not be statistically a sound thing for one to promulgate for purposes of coming up with some ideas as to who and what age serial killers might be?
I have to answer that. I think in your question you're mixing apples and oranges. That
I've heard that before.
That my response would have to be that.
Let me just explain this to you real quick, Doctor. What's happening is he's like, I'm the expert here. Should I not continue to give my expert analysis on the situation at hand? No. What I'm going to do is explain it fully to you, and then cut you off with a joke, and then continue to cut you off. I'm not done yet.
That if on the basis of
I
that
this bull guy. I like both of these attorneys actually, but
study, one were to predict that every serial killer was between 30 and 40 years of age, that is a lousy basis for prediction.
Lousy?
Yes, very poor.
Now, you know, based upon your knowledge and experience, that a chapter of a book is not necessarily a complete and total exhaustion of everything relative to the subject matter in the book.
That's correct.
You're aware of that. And you're aware, are you, of the reputation of Mr. Wrestler?
I am aware that he has a reputation of being a speaker on this subject.
Do you know who the other two people are, to which Johnny Douglas, who is also a co-author on the same book that Mr. Wrestler is a co-author on?
I do not know John Douglas.
Well, Mr. McCann asked you if you knew of, he said, Mr. Wrestler and others, did you look at the, what do they call this, the fly cover, and see that John Douglas is a supervisory special agent of the FBI and serves as program manager of the Bureau of Criminal Investigation Analysis Program, where he supervises a staff of investigative profiles who provide support to law enforcement agencies worldwide. He is also an adjunct faculty member at several major universities. Did you read that?
Yes, I read that.
Did you know him to be the same Mr. Douglas that Mr. McCann quoted today as saying that he has never ever heard? I think it's the same Mr. Douglas, correct me if I'm wrong. If you can't answer, tell me. When I tried to proffer Mr. Wrestler that he said Mr. Douglas, who's presently with the FBI, has never heard this ever being attempted before. You hear that statement?
I heard him say that in court today.
That same Mr. Douglas?
I don't really know. I made the same presumption.
You know what it is? Is it the same Mr. Douglas?
So it is. I think if I did, I indicated, I meant to indicate certainly successfully attempted. Whether it's been attempted or not, I do not know.
Well, you have never written a book concerning studies of people who committed violent crimes in the nature of homicide.
No, I have not written such a book.
Have you ever done any study?
Not on people who specifically commit violent crimes, except I am involved in one presently. It is not finished.
Can you tell us how many people you have talked to, without identifying them, how many people you have talked to who have either been accused of...
The shoulder pads are interesting. Like, you don't really see prominent shoulder pads like that anymore, do you?
Or convicted.
Bring back the shoulder pads. Oh, what am I saying? There's that picture with Kanye West that just came out. He had those fucking giant ass fucking football style shoulder pads rocking.
Or charged with the crime of murder one?
I think probably none.
You never talked to a serial killer?
Not that I was aware of.
You have no degree in psychology, do you?
No, sir, I do not.
Have you done any postgraduate studies in the field of clinical psychology?
No, sir.
How about forensic psychology?
Well, could you be more specific about the kind of study you're
Have you taken any?
about?
Have you done any study in the area of forensic psychology?
I'll say no.
Has anybody brought to your attention in anticipation of...
I was looking here, hold on real quick. Fallen saying, is she a psychologist or a psychiatrist? And I just did a quick Google search here, and it doesn't actually say either. It says criminal justice educator and researcher. justice educator and researcher, criminal justice educator and researcher over and over. I don't see any. Just making sure I'm looking at the right person here. Career assistant professor, criminal justice, University of Wisconsin. Associate professor, University of Wisconsin. Professor, University of Wisconsin since 1993. Institute of Politics and Law since 1996.
Of your testifying here today concerning the concepts that you said are not of great moment, that is that which is contained in chapter 6. Has anybody brought to your attention that any psychiatrist or any psychologist has ever used such data?
Straight up now, tell me, do you really want to love me forever? Shoulder pads, era.
The kind of which formulated by Mr. Ressler and found it to be very helpful in the exercise of their profession in trying to understand serial killers and the minds of serial killers. Has anybody brought that to your attention?
No, and just to make the record
100% on the Kanye thing.
straight, we were talking about chapter 8,
Okay.
not chapter 6.
Chapter 8 is the chapter on organized, disorganized.
That's correct.
Now, you say that you don't agree with that because of the database or because of the concept, which?
No, I had not spoken as to the concept itself. I was saying that a typology of this nature, based on such little evidence, is very risky to use that as a tool for classification. Social scientists would not do that.
If
Carolyn is a smart one. She's always dropping knowledge in here, folks. I like it.
assume that the database will never get larger than 50, would any such study relative to 50 serial killers as promulgated in the sexual homicide book that we're talking about here, as contained in Chapter 8, be of any value for social scientists?
Not in terms of prediction or classification.
And if law enforcement and psychologists, forensic and otherwise, and psychiatrists, forensics and otherwise, are using that data, they are using a false base.
I think they are using an unreliable base. In the investigatory process, I think there's sometimes need to grasp at straws. I understand that use of this in the investigatory process.
But it's still grasping at straws.
Yes.
So from 78 to 90, in spite of or because of the small database, they were really performing an exercise of futility or guesswork for the most part.
If what they were doing was establishing a profile for use when there is almost nothing else to go on, I would not be critical of it.
That's all.
Just 2 or 3 questions, if it please the court. You're not criticizing it simply as a profiling, attempting to help the police in a broad way in looking for an unknown person. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Would you turn to the exhibit that says men who murdered?
Yes.
Turn to the second last page of deviant behavior.
Tell us who wrote that, would you?
It's an FBI publication, Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Yeah, but is there an author?
No. It captured the men who murdered. You see that in the second to last page under deviant behaviors. Mm-hmm. Would you read into the record the last sentence under the second sentence as the last sentence in that paragraph?
It starts with C figure 1?
No, it starts with deviant behavior.
Yes. The deviant behavior identified at the crime scene provides some clues for understanding the type of criminal personality responsible for the crime.
Right. A clue is a clue. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's not a definition, is it?
No.
Okay.
Well, just so the record's clear, that was limited to crime scene.
That's...
The words you just read said crime scene.
Yes, which was my point earlier.
Well, Mr. Ressler, if you heard the proper proof, was not just crime scene analysis.
Yes, I understand that. But the work that shows up in print is based on crime scene analysis.
What you're doing is you're doing a critical comment on crime scene analysis for the mixed, disorganized, and organized as being sufficiently for one to be able to make an opinion to a reasonable degree of professional certainty, because statistically the database is too small. Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
Well, how about the total concept where the same person who uses crime scene, personality profile, investigation of the minds of other like serial killers, and who draws from that and comes up with a profile? Same problem with that because of the database?
Yes.
So in order, if I understand, in order for someone to do this the right way, they're going to have to wait until there's a sufficient number of serial killers to see if there's a common bond between all of them, so that a social statistician might be able to say, now the database is large enough, so if you use it, it's got some meaning to social science. I know you don't support that, but basically that's what you're saying.
I'm saying that it takes much more to use a typology predictively than what exists here.
That's almost a little bit of leading the witness there a little bit, right? I mean, I know that she's a professional and she's kind of like, it seems like they're letting her speak their mind a little bit more clearly. It's a, again, this is an insanity case. We know what's happening.
Thank you.
That's all. I'd like to move those exhibits into evidence subject to our copying that particular portion of the book and marking it and putting it in there.
Yeah, they'll be received for the purpose
I think I got that.
Yeah, these attorneys are going at it here. This has been an interesting day so far.
You can use that.
If we have, we'll submit it to the court today.
They're received for the purpose of preserving the records, Doc. I would, first of all, the court has not heard anything to cause it to change its original ruling. The court would like to add something to that ruling. The offer of proof was in the form of a proposed hypothetical question. Standard criminal jury instruction 205 is entitled Expert Testimony Hypothetical Question. It reads as follows. During the trial, an expert witness was told to assume that certain facts were true and then was asked for an opinion based upon those assumptions. This is called a hypothetical question. Such an opinion should be considered only to the extent that the assumed facts upon which it is based
I don't love the old fashioned in these, right? So everybody talk about the shoulder pads.
Are true and correct. Such an opinion does not establish the truth of the facts upon which it is based. If you find that the facts stated in hypothetical question have not been proved, then the opinion based thereon is not to be given any weight. In the law notes in connection with that instruction, there is this language. A hypothetical question may be based on facts not yet in evidence. However, at the conclusion of testimony, every assumption in which the hypothetical question is based must be supported by facts and evidence. And to that, it cites its authority, Novitsky, N-O-V-I-T-Z-K-E v. State, reported at 92 Wisconsin 2nd, page 302, a 1979 case, and Rabata, R-A-B-A-T-A, v. Dahmer, D-O-H-N-E-R, 45 Wisconsin 2nd at page 111, a 1969 case. The significance of this is one of the assumptions was that there is an unknown defendant. That's not the case here.
With all due respect, if you all have to make records, I would like to tell the court that the phraseology of the hypothetical question, it was objectionable for that reason, could have been rephrased to accomplish the same result. It is not necessary that the hypothetical contain the identity.
I do not remember this. Does anyone remember the removable shoulder pads you could put in your any outfit? Oh my God, no.
Identity of the serial killer, one way or the other, in order to make it a legitimate hypothetical question.
We're ready for the jury.
Yes.
All right, so yeah, this was outside of the presence of the jury. The next one, hold on, getting lost here. Detective Dennis Murphy returned. So Detective Dennis Murphy was pretty much the entirety of episode 2 last week. If anybody missed that, please go back and watch the first 2 weeks. We've went through, the parts are listed out here. We did the first 3 here, opening statements. We saw Detective Patrick Kennedy, Detective Dennis Murphy. Also, both of these 2 gentlemen were the 2 men that were initially with Dahmer when he gave, again, his 60-hour confession. We heard him read those 60 hours last week, and it looks like we have a part 4 and 5 coming up here. Let's see what the length is on this. We're about to take a break, though. I'm just going to get this up here. So this is 45 minutes. This is where we're going to start back after about a 5 to 10 minute break, probably about a 5 minute break. I just got to use the bathroom real quick, make a drink. We're approaching noon. Enter it with the way we do it, right? I've got a new video. Some folks have already seen it. If you're coming in late, I've got a new pause video here, or break video, whatever you want to call it. Also, for folks that didn't hear, I've a soft open on the Publicly Buzzed merch site is officially happening. Later this week, I'll be able to take credit cards and debit cards, but right now, PayPal only. Unfortunately, that was a fuck up on mine. Yesterday, I started to test this out, go live, and then we figured out, oh man, I have to get with my bank to figure out the rest of that. But in the meantime, if anyone would like to do that, here's the link to that. Bada bing, bada boom. Appreciate it. And yeah, I will be right back, guys, and we will continue to go down this Jeffrey Dahmer trial rabbit hole. But in the meantime,
we'll return after these messages.
Can't stop shaking them hips, shaking them hips, shaking them. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. Welcome to Publicly Buzzed, folks. Oh, we got bit. Oh my God, by a snake. Definitely got bit by a snake. No, that's a stick. I don't know where the snake went, but I definitely got bit by it. Okay, get the hell out of there.
You got bit by a snake.
Woo! Where did she go? I don't know where I'm lost. Okay, there you go. I see you. I see your name. Coming your way. There is snakes.
That's a griffin. It's a flying bird monster.
You nailed that one.
Back legs of a wolf, front legs of a hawk.
This guy loves weed.
Like claws, and it would swoop down to catch its victim, usually young kids, and it would just tear them apart. And
he's getting a little bit too much pleasure out of talking about griffins tearing people apart. Everybody is. What's going on?
When the griffin got you, all they'd ever find is your shoe.
It's because they're all stoned.
Everyone in that room is stoned out of their minds.
That may be true.
Thank you, Your Honor. Will you please state your name? Yes, it's Amber Laura Hurd. And what is your address? I live in Yucca Valley, California. And how old are you, Amber?
I pledged the entirety of the settlement, $7 million to charity, and I intend to fulfill those obligations.
That's not my question.
I use pledge and donation synonymous with one another.
But I don't.
That's the way theirs goes.
I pledged.
Ours goes.
You still haven't donated.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
Oh, let's go out and talk some shit. Yo! Where's that girl at? Where's that gypsy girl at? Yo, uh-oh, there she is. There's a pretty girl. Yeah! Woo! Yeah, boy! I tell you what.
Money, keep it in a safe. If you talking out your ass, I'll pop out with this 30 and boom, how. Money, keep it in a safe. If you talking out your ass, I'll pop out with this 30 and boom, how.
Getting that butt patted. You getting that butt patted? Yeah. Yeah. She likes that butt patted now.
We'll return after these messages.
Can't stop shaking them hips, shaking them hips, shaking them. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. Welcome to Publicly Buzzed, folks. Oh, we got bit. Oh my God, by a snake. Definitely got bit by a snake. No, that's a stick. I don't know where the snake went, but I definitely got bit by it. Okay, get the hell out of there.
You got bit by a snake.
Woo! Where did you go? I don't know where I'm lost! Okay. I see you. I see your name. Coming your way. There is snakes.
That's a griffin. It's a flying bird monster.
You nailed that one.
Back legs of a wolf, front legs of a hawk.
This guy loves weed.
Like claws, and it would swoop down to catch its victim.
Boo. I'm back. All right, let's continue this going forth. Got a drink. We'll pour that son of a bitch live right here on the big cam. That's a lot of booze, actually. I haven't even eaten today. After this, we're going to go get some lunch, probably. I don't know. Probably won't even be able to fucking drive. Drink responsibly, though. Give her a little mix. Let's go.
Of this confession, it's accurate to say we're about 6/7 of the way through.
Okay, we're continuing the 60-page confession from last week. All right, wow, we still have 2 more parts. Let's go.
Do it, right?
Yes. Again, trigger warning, viewer discretion is advised on this. You know, the beginning of every show here on Publicly Buzzed, I throw out the warning because you never know what we could or will get into. And again, this is graphic stuff that the last week was pretty graphic. Just reading. I got demonetized just from the words being said, folks.
Sir. Okay. Would you go to page 137? I believe that's where we stopped. And there was a discussion in your presence, was there not, with West Dallas Police Department's presence as it relates to the victim of Mr. Dahmer?
Yes, there was.
Would you tell us what was said during that conversation with Mr. Dahmer?
They asked numerous questions regarding the identification of James Dahmer, and upon viewing identification division photographs of James Dahmer, Mr. Dahmer stated he was approximately 75% sure that this was a Hispanic male that he met at the bus stop by the 219 Club sometime in January of 1988.
Let me see if I can help us move it along. This was basically a situation whereby there was trying to be identification of the body.
That's correct.
And the person.
Yes.
And there were questions about any kind of tattooing on his body and things of that nature.
That's correct.
What came as a result of that discussion between the West Dallas Police Department, Mr. Dahmer, and yourself?
He recalled that Mr. Dahmer had 2 scars right above his nipples at the size of a cigarette, and upon further investigation and questioning the family, they did recall this, and Mr. Dahmer was subsequently identified as being a victim.
Was that because of 2 cigarette burns that were in his nipple area?
And the appendix and the 75% identification of the photo.
Okay. How old was Mr. Dahmer? 14, 15?
Yes.
Okay. He then went on to talk about the 4th victim, Mr. Sears. And there was a question asked him about when he decided to start keeping the skulls and why at the top of that page, please.
Yes.
What did he say reference to that?
He stated he did not keep anything from any individuals until number 4, Anthony Sears, at which time he decided to keep the skull for remembrance. He stated that when he did keep more items of these individuals, it was because he liked them more or they appealed to him more.
Okay, go on and tell us, was there some discussion relative to an incident that involved a gentleman that was not a victim of homicide?
Yes.
Would you tell us about that, please?
This time, Mr. Dahmer was questioned regarding Mr. Flowers. He informed them that when he met Mr. Flowers told him he was a counselor for the retarded. He also told them that he had had car problems, at which time Mr. Dahmer stated he could take a cab back to his grandmother's house, where he would get his grandmother's car and come back to give him a jump. He stated that when he went into the house, after he turned off the alarm, Mr. Dahmer gave him a cup of coffee in the basement, and the coffee had the sleeping potion in it.
This Flowers in.
Back to sleeping potion, guys. Wow, forgot about that.
incident was not a homicide and never ended up a homicide.
That's correct.
And Mr. Dahmer, in spite of being advised not to talk about it, talked about it anyway.
Yes, he did.
Okay. Continue on, please.
Mr. Dahmer stated he told Mr. Flowers that they were going into the basement so that they would not wake up his grandmother. They agreed on light sex. Mr. Flowers had taken his shirt off, and then the pill started to take effect. Mr. Dahmer stated that he gave Flowers as many as 12 sleeping pills in the coffee, and he passed out about a half an hour after he arrived at the residence. He stated they had been doing body rubbing before he drank the coffee. He stated Mr. Flowers passed out, at which time he pulled his pants down. He does not recall if he had oral sex with him or not, but in the morning his grandmother saw him, at which time he figured that Mr. Flowers was too big and didn't want to cause a commotion, and his grandmother saw him, so he did not kill him. He stated he walked him to the bus stop on 57th and Lincoln, gave him $1 to get on the bus, but he did admit taking $80 from Mr. Flowers, but stated that he left other monies in his wallet. Denied taking any jewelry from him, but stated if any jewelry had fallen off Mr. Flowers, he would have thrown it away. He stated that Mr. Flowers wasn't his type, and that was another reason why he did not kill him.
Okay, I'd like you to go on to page 141, please. And tell us, was there some questions about the incident with Mr. Tuomi?
Yes. A citizen brought a small suitcase into the Detective Bureau indicating that this was a suitcase that may have been used in the Mr. Tuomi homicide. We asked Mr. Dahmer what happened to the suitcase, and he stated that he purchased a suitcase and it was measured approximately 3 feet by 3 feet by 1 foot. It had wheels on it. And after he disposed of the body of Mr. Tuomi, he ripped up the suitcase, cut it up, and threw it in the trash so it could not be used again.
There was some further discussion. What's the next area of discussion that had to do relative with the matters that we're talking about here in court that are not immaterial and irrelevant? By that I mean things, just general telephone nature calls and things like that.
Well, we called various agencies, including Chicago and Milwaukee police departments. He stated on July 3rd and 4th he placed calls to the Chicago Police Department to report his wallet stolen or missing so that he could obtain an excuse at his place of employment because he missed work.
Okay. What else did he tell you about making calls?
In May of '91, he made a call to the Milwaukee Police Department and stated because he wanted to report a $5 robbery. He also admitted to calling several barrel companies in the area and also a barrel company in Chicago to get information regarding barrels. He subsequently purchased a barrel in Milwaukee so that he could dispose of the body parts. He also admitted placing calls to bookstores in the city, and he placed calls to these various bookstores. In fact, did purchase handcuffs and items from the bookstores and handcuffs from an Army Navy surplus store.
He bought, he told you where he bought the handcuffs?
Yes.
Did he make that plural or singular?
He made a set of handcuffs, he said.
A set of handcuffs. So
right.
that means one
indicating
set.
One hand, right.
Okay. Tell us what the next thing he told you about regarding his activity in the bookstores.
We questioned him regarding his activities in the bookstore, and he stated that it just started off by looking at magazines, then progressed to watching videos, and continued to meeting people in the back room of bookstores, having sex, and then going into the bathhouses. He stated he spent a lot of time at these bookstores until recently when he began killing his victims. We then questioned him regarding the chemicals he used to dispose of the bodies, or the ones that were found in his residence. He stated that he bought the formaldehyde about 2 months ago from the store on 27th and Kilbourne. He also bought the ether and the chloroform from there 4 months ago. He stated he would get his prescriptions filled at Walgreens and another drugstore, and he would obtain the Soilax from the hardware store. Stated he called the hardware store regarding the chemicals to use to remove the skin from the skull of a rabbit, at which time he suggested the Soilex, and that's when he started using it. He also called taxidermy places to find out what they used. He stated he bought the Soilex from the hardware store on 4th and Walnut, and he bought the muriatic acid from the hardware and True Value stores.
Now you started talking to Mr. Dahmer about his frame of mind on letting people go or not.
Yes.
Can you tell us what he said reference to that?
Mr. Dahmer was asked whether or not he has let anyone go or in fact had sex with individuals without killing them during this killing spree. He stated that other than the ones that got away, there were possibly no more than 10 that he had sex with and had not killed due to the fact that they were possibly, he did not like them that much, or he did not have any sleeping pills left. He stated that most of the time it was because he did not like them and he did not want them around. The most recent one that he had sex with without harming the individual or attempting to drug him or kill him was a big black male truck driver, and they had a normal sexual relationship during this killing spree. He also stated that earlier on, when he first started killing, he would shop around and find someone that he liked, but near the end, compulsion took over, and he would find someone and just keep them.
Tell me about this alleged big black male truck driver. Did you find out if that was true or not?
No, we did not.
Did you attempt to find out who that might be?
We had no way of locating him. He did not know where he was from. He had no more information except that he was a big black male truck driver that he met.
Did he tell you how many times he had had a normal relationship with him? How many times he had been with this gentleman?
He said once.
Oh, once. Okay, good. Continue on, please. Didn't he say something to you about his cooperation and why he was cooperating?
During the interview, Mr. Dahmer was given coffee, cigarettes, soda, and he again stated that he wished to cooperate fully in our investigation, to answer any questions that we had, and to help identify the last victim, and to ease the pain of their families. He was then taken back to the jail.
He then again meets up with the West Allis Police Department, who had additional questions, correct?
That's correct.
Tell us what he says answers to their questions.
He was asked whether or not he missed drinking since he's been locked up. This time he stated he did not drink every day, only when he committed the offenses. He informed Mr. Dahmer that he did not have to say anything regarding this due to the fact that his attorney had already left, and he stated it didn't make any difference, that he would cooperate with us and has cooperated and has made statements against his interests without his attorney not being present. Therefore, he is willing to talk to us about his drinking. He stated that when he killed his individual, he was always drunk, and the drinking helped him get into the frame of mind and made it easier for him. He indicated that he didn't drink every day, but when he planned to get someone, he would start drinking after he planned, and then he was usually drunk when he killed them. He stated that he even drank when he was cutting up the bodies. He again stated that it helped to make it easier when he was doing this. He related that he feels that he is not an alcoholic, and the reason he was drinking was due to the fact that he committed these terrible offenses.
Once again, there's a further discussion about this young man who had tattoo scars, right?
Yes.
We have already talked about that.
That's correct.
Okay, tell us what happens. Now we're up to what date on the reporting system?
August 21st.
Okay, this is now virtually almost a 1 month anniversary date.
Yes.
Shy of 1 day. Tell us what happens at that time. What he tells you on that day.
Mr. Dahmer was questioned regarding the muriatic acid which was found in his apartment on the night of his arrest, that being approximately 16 gallons of muriatic acid. He related that he bought this acid at Ace Hardware. He took a vet cab to the hardware store in order to purchase it. He related he intended to use this muriatic acid in the 57-gallon industrial strength drum which he had previously purchased in order to dispose of the body parts which he had in his apartment. At this time, he realized that because of the loss of his job and the fact that he was out of money, he would soon have to leave his apartment. Therefore, he decided that he would completely destroy all evidence of his deeds by mixing water and muriatic acid in the 57-gallon drum, and thereby placing all of the body parts which he had in his apartment in the drum at one time, including all the skulls which he had saved and boiled. the complete torsos which he had saved and boiled from his victims, and the victims who were recently killed and already placed in a drum. He felt that by doing this, he would completely rid himself of any evidence of his crimes, and after the bones and flesh had decalcified, he would be able to pour them down the toilet, completely destroying all evidence. He felt he would be thrown out of his apartment because of the lack of funds, and he would start a new life by going to the Salvation Army where he could stay. He thought for about a month until he could find another job and get on his feet. This time he is questioned as to whether he truly believed that by destroying all the evidence and starting over again, if he would be able to stop committing the homicides in which he had been involved in. This time Mr. Dahmer related,
now this is a quote,
"If I am to be honest with myself, I would have to admit that if I again was set up in another apartment and had the opportunity, I probably would not be able to stop. I feel that it is almost a driving compulsion to commit these acts, and I probably would have started up again after some time."
This is an end of quote.
Mr. Dahmer again stated in a quote, "Obviously, a power higher than myself has been fed up with my deeds and decided it was time for me to be stopped." That's the end of quote. We questioned him regarding the fact that the flesh on the feet of several of his victims seemed to be cut off, and the medical examiner had made inquiries as to why this was done. We asked him this question and related that by cutting the flesh off the sole and heel of the foot of his victim, it was easier for the muriatic acid to work on the bones of the foot to decalcify and turn it into a sludgy substance. He related that the skin on the bottom of the foot is extremely tough, and it took more time for the muriatic acid to work through, and that was the reason why he cut the flesh off the feet of his victims.
Going on to what he told you on later part of that day, there was a narrative where you started talking to him about his place of living and why he was there and how he got along with his neighbors, right?
Right.
I want you to tell us what he said.
Mr. Dahmer related that he moved into the residence at 924 North 25th Street. He picked the area because it was low rent and it was close to work. He related that he had no idea who was living in the apartment complex at the time and thought it was mostly family members. He did state that he knew most of the tenants were black due to the area. He related that he is not prejudiced, nor does he dislike blacks. He related that he was harassed by blacks in the neighborhood and those people who made remarks to him he did not care for, but personally he did not feel he was prejudiced.
What he was telling you was that he didn't like the people that made remarks to him, but he had no prejudice other than against those people, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know of anything to the contrary?
No, I don't.
Go ahead.
He related that the security items in his party, namely a brown alarm which was on the door, was purchased from Radio Shack. He related that he also purchased a Black & Decker alarm from a Black & Decker distribution center and a fake video camera from another store, which he did not recall. He stated he purchased all of these items approximately 1 year ago. Again, regarding the chemicals that were recovered, he purchased them at Lobbs on 27th and Kilbourne, where he got the formaldehyde, also a pint of ether and a pint of chloroform.
Okay, now I want you to go down to page 147, where Mr. Dahmer talks about his situation relative to some questions about Tracy Edwards.
Mr. Dahmer denied that he talked to any prisoners about the individual known as Tracy Edwards, who was the man who got away wearing the handcuffs.
I understand. The reason you asked that question is there must have been some allegation that he did talk to some other inmates about Tracy Edwards?
Yes.
And you asked him about it and he denied that?
That's correct.
And what does he go on to say?
So he related that he did not talk to anyone regarding him, nor did he make any statements that it was all Edwards' fault. He also denies having a dislike for blacks and using the word nigger.
Now, those questions were asked of him because somebody had made statements to the contrary.
That's correct.
Did you ever do an investigation to see whether or not Mr. Dahmer was not telling you the truth when he answered your questions?
No, these statements came from outside sources, and we questioned him regarding that. We had no specific individual making these statements.
So when he said that he had no dislike for blacks and he did not use the word nigger, as far as you know, he was telling the truth?
That's correct.
Continue on.
Mr. Dahmer also related that the only visitors he had received are his attorneys, his father, and members of the Milwaukee Police Department. He also related that he is quiet and he will not talk to anyone regarding this investigation other than his attorney and ourselves, me and Detective Kennedy.
Okay. Let's go on to the next report on page 149 concerning the allegation of the drugging of a human being in one of the bathhouses. We don't have to mention who the person is, but let's choose to.
We questioned him regarding a person he had drugged in one of the bathhouses. Mr. Dahmer related that he did not recall the name of the individual he met in the bathhouse, but he
did not remember the names of the individuals he met in the bathhouses.
Yes.
Okay.
But he did recall drugging one of the individuals in the bathhouse on 7th in Wisconsin. When the subject did not awake after a couple of hours, he became concerned and had the people in the bathhouse call the paramedics, who took the subject to the hospital thinking he had overdosed. He was then questioned if he was experiencing any withdrawals, not only from alcohol, but also from not using the sleeping pill. And he related he has not experienced any withdrawals from alcohol, nor from the use of not using a sleeping pill, because he does not take the pills regularly. He related that he would take one pill about every 6 months, and this was only when he could not sleep. He related the main reason he had the sleeping pill was to use on the people that he brought to his apartment or the ones he met in the bathhouses. He related he first started to experiment by using 3 pills on the people, then he used as many as 7 on some of them. He related that he would bluff the doctors into prescribing the pills for him because he would tell them that he could not sleep, but he never used them. He figures the last time he did take one of the pills was approximately 6 months ago. Mr. Dahmer related that he did have a black male over to his residence about 1 month before this incident with the victim, whom he described as Cash D. He related that at this time he had mixed a drink for this black male, but he mixed up the cups and he subsequently drank the wrong drink. He stated he passed out, and when he awoke the next morning, he was missing $300 and the black male was missing from his residence. He related that he never reported this incident to the police. He also related that the only drugs or any other pills that he took were vitamins. He denies going into a bar in Milwaukee on East Wall Street, and only stated he only went into Carol's Bar in Chicago once, and that was on 7/6/91 or 7/5/91 when he picked up the victim, Weinberger. We then asked him if he could recall his home phone number, and he could not. We then questioned him as to whether or not his father had come to his...
Let me ask you. You asked him if he could recall what his home phone number was, and he said he could not. And then he said, therefore, or at least there was a conclusion, therefore he was unable to give his home phone number to anyone.
Right.
Is that why was that a matter of interest?
Because we had received calls from people stating that Mr. Dahmer had given them his phone number, and out of the blue we just asked him what his phone number was, and he couldn't recall it. Therefore, these people were just giving us prank calls. We were trying to establish whether or not it was true or not.
So you were doing that to see if you were getting true or false information from these people?
That's correct.
Continue on, please.
We then questioned him as to whether his father had ever come to his grandmother's residence on South 57th Street, and if he ever found any bones in the garage. He related his father did come there regarding the smell which was in the garage, and upon checking the garage, his father did find some smashed up bones.
Right there, that is Jeffrey Dahmer's father.
But Jeffrey told him that they were from a raccoon. He related that these bones were actually the backbone and the arm bones of one of the victims. We questioned Mr. Dahmer regarding 2 Hispanic males who had called our department and related that he had approached them on approximately 7/21/91 at the Grand Avenue Mall. Jeff related he did remember asking 2 Hispanic males at the mall to come to his place to be photographed, and he offered them about $100. He related that he did stop at a liquor store, bought some beer, and they all got into a cab. He thought the Hispanic males were approximately 18 years of age. While they were in the cab proceeding to his residence, he stated the Hispanic males jumped out of the cab in the vicinity of 22nd and Wisconsin and walked away very fast. He stated that they must have changed their minds. Dahmer related that on this occasion he was just interested in taking their pictures because there was two of them together. He stated that if we recall the victim whom he met on 27th Street, that it was sometime after the winter, and it was at this time the victim whom he had skinned. He stated that it took him approximately 2 hours to do that. We asked him why he wanted to skin the subject, and he related that he wanted to try it, and he wanted to keep the skin. He stated that when he started to cut it, he cut it from the rear of the back of the neck area, and then kind of peeled it away. He related it was like skinning a chicken. He stated that when he pulled off the face, he tried to be careful, but when it came off, it was just like a mask. Then used 2 items to try and preserve the skin. He used a box of borax and 7 boxes of salt. He related that he mixed these together in water, placed the skin in there, which he removed from the victim in this solution with the intention of saving it. But he left it in this solution too long and it became mushy and he had to dispose of it.
Come a time then when your discussion was interrupted for whatever reason and resumed because Jeffrey Dahmer told you there was some more things he wanted to tell you.
That's correct.
So a little bit later, he continued to tell you what he said he would talk to you about after he finished doing some other things.
Yes.
What did he tell you?
Mr. Dahmer went on to relate that he originally told us that he had only eaten 1 bicep of one of the victims. He related that there were other times in which he had eaten part of the victim. He related that the first time was a person he identified as Cash D, who was Raymond Smith. He related that he ate this victim's heart and that it tasted kind of spongy. He indicated that the next person was a person he met by the bookstore, victim number 7, Ernest Miller. He related this was a person he really liked. He indicated that he had filleted his heart and kept it in the freezer, and he also kept his bicep. He indicated that he had eaten the thigh muscle of this subject, but it was so tough he could hardly chew it. He then purchased a meat tenderizer and used it on the bicep. He stated that it tasted like beef for a filet mignon. The next person who he was going to eat, and who he in fact did eat, was victim number 15, Oliver Lacey. He stated that on this victim he ate his bicep. He stated it also tasted like a filet mignon. He stated that he would tenderize it first. He stated that he did keep this individual's heart and bicep too. We asked him if he had eaten the body parts just plain or how they were prepared, and he stated he would use salt, pepper, and A1 steak sauce on them. He stated the reason he ate these parts was because he was curious, but then it was because he wanted to make them a part of him. He stated that this way he could keep these people with him. He stated that he ate only the people that he really liked, and he wanted them to be a part of him or with him all the time. Mr. Dahmer related that he did not try to eat any other of the victims. He stated that the 2 hearts in the freezer and the bicep muscles recovered in the freezer would have been eaten by him had he not been arrested by the police. He related that he does not think there is anything else that he could recall to tell us at this time. We asked him why he had not informed us of eating these various body parts when he first started, and when he first stated that he only ate the 1 bicep, and he stated he did not want to talk about it because it was not very appealing, and he did not want us to think less of him. We advised Mr. Dahmer that we had spent enough time with him where we would be willing to sit down and talk with him regarding any of his activities relative to this investigation or any other activities which he can recall and wishes to talk to us about. Mr. Dahmer related there was nothing else that he can recall relative to this investigation, nor is he involved in any other homicides, sexual assaults, or attacks on anyone. He stated if some individuals do come forward indicating that he made requests to them to pose for him, he states that that is true because he had approached many other people, but he has not killed anyone else, nor has he had any other sexual relations with anyone without their consent. He stated that the other individuals whom he had had sexual relations with or sexually touched or rubbed was done with mutual consent, and those were the individuals whom he did not desire and whom he let leave his apartment. Mr. Dahmer related that he does recall, if he does...
All right, much needed break of this testimony. This shit is brutal. And it's going to be because of Groot. Groot, thank you for coming through here and becoming a member. Bam.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Love it. Give them the beers. Throw the beers in the chat. Throw the beers in the chat, folks. Boom, boom, boom. Those satisfying pours right there. Groot, thank you so much for becoming a member. Appreciate it. And yeah, this is, again, just to break the monotony here, this is a brutal testimony. 60-hour confessional. Last week, we got through most of it. This week, they kind of broke it up, actually, in the trial, probably to help everyone out here. But yeah, the detective is back again reading through this. And this is a whole nother part after this, part 5. And that's probably going to finish us up for the day. Maybe another hour or so here. But yeah, thank you all for hanging out. And if you're hanging out in the back, hit that like. That really helps us out. Again, share this out to your communities. Yeah, can't thank you all enough. Thank you all so much.
Does recall anything, he will contact the sheriff and inform them to contact us to give us the information. He was then returned to the sheriff's department.
The next time you talk to him is on the 22nd relative to a situation involving something in Chicago. Does that have anything to do with this case? That would be on page 154.
Yes.
Okay, will you tell us about it, please?
Regarding information received from Chicago, a Hispanic male related that he was frequenting a bar located in the gay area of Chicago known as the Vortex, V-O-R-T-E-X. While he was in the Vortex bar, he met the suspect, Dahmer, who offered to pay him $800 if he would accompany him back to Milwaukee via the Greyhound bus and allow him to take nude photos of him and have him spend the night with him. He related that this occurred on a Sunday evening. He believes that it happened during the Gay Pride Parade, which was approximately June 30th, 1991. He related that the subject told him, "I'm not leaving tonight until I find someone." He refused to go with Mr. Dahmer. However, he is positive that the subject was Mr. Dahmer who approached him. When questioned regarding this, Mr. Dahmer admits he does recall talking to a white or Hispanic male at the tavern known as the Vortex in Chicago. He stated he was extremely drunk that day. However, he does recall that he offered an individual $800 to have him return with him. He related that although the subject did not accompany him, he met one of the victims, who was identified as Matt Turner, at the Greyhound bus station in Chicago and returned to Milwaukee with him.
There was a discussion that took place commencing at pages 156 relative to the odors both at his grandmother's house and at his building and his dealings with the building superintendent about those odors. Will you tell us about that, please?
We questioned Mr. Dahmer regarding the fact that many times throughout his criminal activities he was in fact contacted by authorities, police, parents, superintendents of apartment buildings that he lived in, and they had in fact questioned him regarding certain aspects of his activities. The first time he was stopped by police while living in Ohio and attempting to dispose of his first victim, the officer stopped him. He was able to convince this officer that everything was all right and he in fact eluded detection. Regarding, while he was at his grandmother's house, his grandmother questioned him many times regarding his foul smells emanating from the basement, which were results of the victims which he had murdered and cut up. He related that he was able to convince her that the foul smells were because of her cat, Jody. He also was questioned by his father while at his grandmother's house when his father did in fact find some of the broken bones of one of the victims in the garage, which had been placed in a bag by his grandmother's house. To this, he stated that he told his father that those were broken bones of a raccoon which he had found and cut up. He convinced his father that this activity was similar to the activity he had experimented with while he was back in Ohio at an early age in his teenage years. He stated that his father was unable to tell that they were human bones as he had used a sledgehammer and smashed them up into such small fragments that they were undetectable. He was confronted by his building supervisor in the Oxford Arms Apartments where he was staying on 25th Street relative to this foul smell. And he related that on several occasions the supervisor confronted him, and at one time he showed him some rotten meat which he had in his freezer, stating that the freezer had gone out and the rotten meat was the cause for this foul smell. Regarding another time he was confronted by the supervisor, he showed him a plastic garbage container which he had been using in order to dissolve the human bones and flesh with the muriatic acid, However, upon showing this to the supervisor, it was empty, and although it had that foul odor, he stated that he used this container in order to change the water in his fish tank, and at times the dead fish were left in there. He related that it seemed to appease him at this time, and the building supervisor just told him to get rid of the bucket, which he promptly did. Regarding the incident with the police and the Asian boy, Conrad Simpson Fowen, he related that although he was extremely nervous during the time of the questioning by police, he put on a very calm attitude and felt he was able to convince the police that it was a lover's problem between two homosexuals. He related that due to the fact that he was able to convince all these people in positions of authority, his parents, neighbors who questioned him regarding his activities, it gave him a feeling that he could get away with his crimes. He felt that he had the ability to make people see a phase of him that only he wished them to see, and this encouraged him to continue on with his crimes, feeling that he would never be caught. We asked him if he shared with anyone these activities or felt the need to ever tell anyone, and he stated no, stating that these ideas were all his own. He related he did not get these ideas for cutting up people or killing people from movies, TVs, books, or magazines. He stated that they were strictly out of his head. He related that he liked the fact that these ideas were his own and they were uniquely his own. He felt power in the fact that they were his own private thoughts, and that while he was doing this, he felt it was his own private world and belonged to no one else but him. Due to the fact that he states he was always a loner, he took pleasure in the fact of knowing that he had a private world of his own and no one else knew about. When questioned further regarding the subject who was completely skinned, he related that the skin of the human being is easily detached. He stated that much of the way you would detach skin from a chicken which you are planning to cook. He stated that after the initial incision, you could pull the skin and it would pull off the muscle tissue of the body easily. The only time it was difficult was when he was pulling the skin around the joints. At this time, he would use a small paring knife to carefully cut the skin around the joint portion of the body. Regarding the fact that the skin was completely taken off the head of the subject, Mr. Dahmer related that he would start the incision in the lower portion of the back of the neck and slice up to the top or crown of the head. He related at this time he would pull up on either side of the skin from the incision and would easily completely pull right off the skull of the individual. He related that the only time he needed to do any real cutting would be around the facial features, that being the eyes, nose, lips, and mouth. He related that the entire skull portion of the skin came off in one complete piece. While it was off, it actually looked somewhat like a mask you can buy at a party store. He related that he kept the skin and the mask-like facial features of this subject and planned to treat them in the solution he had made up of salt and borax. He stated that he soaked them in this salt and borax solution with water for several weeks and planned to take them out and dry them to preserve them, but he kept the skin and mask-like he wanted to keep the skin and mask-like portion of this individual's head. However, he underestimated the power of the mixture of the borax and salt, and after several weeks in the solution, the skin turned to a mushy substance, and he was unable to keep it, so he threw it out.
Detective Murphy, in the next few pages, you're asking him some general questions about people that are not parties to this matter at all, but you're also asking him the places that he went, and you have already told us about the kind of places he went in Milwaukee, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would you go to page 176, please? And for the purpose of the court, we end at 179, so we're almost at the end. Will you tell us concerning something to do with a moving company that moved him to his residence, North 25th Street, and why that was important?
Mr. Dahmer was asked which moving company had moved him to his residence at 924 North 25th Street in May of 1990, because he originally stated it was the Atlas moving van. A check with Atlas showed they had not moved him. Mr. Dahmer stated that it might have been Allied, but he is not sure, but he believes the moving company began with an A. We attempted to locate this moving company to ascertain whether or not they had any records in their computer. We then questioned him regarding his stay in Miami, Florida in 1981. He stated he was staying at the Bimini Bay Motel, B-I-M-I-N-I, and asked him what landmarks or other hotels were in the area. He stated that the Bimini Bay Hotel was approximately 1/4 mile from the ocean, about 1/2 mile down Collins Avenue, was the Newport Hotel and the Castaway Hotel. He stated that the submarine shop where he worked was approximately 5 blocks away from these hotels. He also stated that the Fontainebleau Hilton was 3 miles away on Collins Avenue. He stated that the Sunshine Submarine Shop was located like in a mini mall or semicircle off Collins Avenue. He stated you could get breakfast, lunch, or dinner at this location. He does not know if this restaurant is still presently there. He can only recall what was there at the time he was there.
I've got to ask you to go back to page 173. Attorney White had indicated to me that there is something that she feels that will be gone into, so we might as well get out this way. In the third paragraph, there was a question relative to whether or not he had ever asked a cab driver to come into his apartment for a drink after he had taken a cab home. Tell us what that cab driver said that caused you people to talk to Jeffrey Dahmer about this man.
Okay, we asked Mr. Dahmer if he ever asked a cab driver to enter his apartment for a drink after he had taken the cab home. The driver stated that he didn't drink, but he would smoke a joint, and Mr. Dahmer stated to the cab driver that he did have marijuana in his apartment, but the cab driver declined, stating that he had to work. Upon mentioning this, Mr. Dahmer stated that this did happen, but it was just a cab that he had taken home and asked the driver to come in for a sociable drink. He related that he did not intend to kill this person, only to hope that it might lead to some type of sex.
Okay. I want to ask you to read the last 2 pages. Has this ended as far as the Milwaukee Police Department talking to Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes.
And this last interview took place on what date?
August 28th, Wednesday.
Month and a week after the discovery.
Right.
Would you read to us what the parting words were between you and Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Dahmer?
At this time, we began to question Mr. Dahmer regarding the way in which he would decide on which individuals to approach. This related to individuals that eventually became his victims. He stated that before going out for the evening, he generally would know whether or not he planned to commit a homicide. And before going out, he would prepare the sleeping pill solution by powdering it, leaving it in a glass on the countertop of his kitchen. He stated that once at the bar, he would generally drink by himself, observe the different individuals in the gay establishment. He states that it was not a matter of color, race, or ethnic heritage of any of his victims, as long as they met what he called the physical profile. He stated this was generally from mid to late teens to the mid-20s, males in medium height, slender build, and generally smooth skin. He stated upon sitting in the taverns and drinking, he would notice one, maybe 2 or 3 who fit his profile and who he found attractive. He also stated that he generally looked for individuals that were alone and not with a tight-knit group.
Not with a tight-knit group?
Yes.
Okay.
He states that upon detecting which victim he found attractive...
Upon deciding,
excuse me, he would generally wait until approximately bar time, which would be the closing of the tavern. And then as the patrons were filing out, he would approach the victims and ask them if they wished to accompany him home for either pictures, sexual contact, or for cocktails, many of the times offering them money. He states this was a general routine except for times when he met some of his victims on the street in front of the bookstores, and then the same routine as far as offering money for sex, photographs, or cocktails. Regarding the individual picked up at the mall, that being Conarac, Simpson Phone, he states that he had been hanging around the Grand Avenue Mall that day and was leaving the mall, exiting the Wisconsin Avenue exit. As he was walking out, the victim, Simpson Phone, was entering the mall. He states upon seeing this individual, he was immediately attracted to him and struck up a conversation. It was at this time that he offered him money to return with him to his apartment for photographs. He states regarding other times in the mall, there were several times that he had walked throughout the mall and would look for individuals that fit his physical profile. and he would approach them, offer them money. However, many of the people he talked with and offered money to and asked them to return to his apartment would refuse him. Some even were hostile towards him. At this time, this interview terminated.
You had 60 hours of talks with him.
Yes.
You ever cry?
Not in my presence, no.
Other than the way you have described him, did he have many mood alterations?
Yes, he changed, well, he became more friendly. He accepted us. He wasn't afraid of us.
You've never made note in any of the notes that you put down that at any time did he make up any hearing voices, hallucinations, delusions, the devil made me do it, nothing of that nature at all at any time, correct?
No, he did not.
In spite of the fact that his lawyers were there often?
Yes.
That his lawyers were talking to him when you weren't there?
That's correct.
He had been seen by a doctor for a couple of different reasons?
Yes.
A psychologist?
Yes.
Never made up anything to give you reason that he was trying to phony up a mental insanity defense, correct?
Correct.
Just answered your questions, answered your questions, became friendly with you and Detective Kennedy. Whatever you asked him, he answered you.
That's correct.
Was he evasive?
No.
You know, as an experienced police officer who has talked to people many times over the years, that instead of Murphy and Kennedy, if it was Jones and Smith, there might have been all kinds of different things talked about. But for the most part, your job is to get as much information as you can based upon the way you conduct an investigation.
That's
right?
correct.
You know from your knowledge and experience that he could not have possibly told you every single solitary thing about every single solitary moment of his life, correct? You know
That's correct.
So that later, did you find out that there was additional information that he was giving to other law enforcement people or to doctors or whatever? Did you learn that?
Yes, I did.
Did it come to surprise you?
Well, this was after we had finished interviewing him. We had no more contact with him. And he had told us during the interviews he was truthful with us. And
sure.
That's the information we had.
You know that he told the doctor or whomever, at least he told the doctor, that he started doing some drilling, not for the purposes as what he told you, but also for the purposes of trying to create zombies. You come aware of it?
I've heard that. I became aware of it, yes.
Yes. He never told you anything like that?
No, he did not.
Okay, but he did tell you who drilled?
He did, yes.
Yes. May we approach the sidebar?
Yeah, they've mentioned the drilling into the head, that he wanted to make zombies. This shit's wild.
Okay, jurors, we're going to break for the weekend at this point. We'll reconvene Monday morning at...
So at this point, they were actually breaking for the weekend, and this poor detective still has another part here. Part 11. How long is it? It's an hour and 12 minutes. Yeah, I don't think I'm actually going to get into that. That's the long one. We're going to end this one today. Right now, I kind of gauge them off of basically how long they are. This one would get us probably with some commentary into 1:30ish. I'm going to tap out today on this, and we'll pick up here next Sunday 9 a.m. for Murder Church Part 5 with Detective Dennis Murphy's continued testimony. And then even further than that, we will get into Dr. Fred Berlin here, and it looks like he goes on for a minute. So next Sunday looks like it's going to be the very end of Detective Dennis Murphy, and then the continuation through of Dr. Berlin. And I'll get some details and some information before we get there. But yeah, thank you all for hanging out and appreciate the hell out of it. Again, Murder Church, week 3, successful. It's been a good show. It's been a good day. A lot of people coming through. Again, we're getting into the time period where you could get away from the coffee and actually pull a drink a real drink, as I like to finish these shows with here. Did a little bit of DDP and Crown. Before I leave, I'm going to plug it one more time officially. Again, it's a soft pitch today. You know, this week I'm going to have to get, again, the actual cards to be able to be used on the site. But currently, you know, you can use PayPal for the merch site. Finally launched a publiclybuzzed.com merch site. Check that out. Please like this before you head out the door, guys. Helps us out in the algorithm. Please sub up if you're not subbed up. If you're watching this later on, thank you very much. Hit the 3 little dots on the side of the subscribe area there and make sure all notifications are clicked, and that will get you, make sure it helps you anyways to make sure you can get all of my community posts, my lives, and my video drops. I'm working on a new video now that I'm hoping to have out within the next week. It's going to be, I don't even want to say the name of it yet, but hopefully it'll be interesting. It's on killers, serial killers and killers alike. So yeah, keep your eye on the channel. The next time you'll be seeing me for sure will be Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to be doing a Unabomber show at some point this week. It probably won't be Tuesday. I need to get some information, be able to show up. It'll either be probably Thursday. It'll probably be Thursday, honestly. The Feral Friday. I'd like to play a drinking game this Feral Friday. I tweeted that out yesterday. Please join the Discord, guys. The Discord is where a lot of stuff is always happening, always conversations. If you want a thread built in there, let me know. There's voice channels. We hang out and watch stuff. Thank you, Under Review. Appreciate it. Murder Church is going to keep on rocking. Thank you very much, Jamie, for watching and holding it down in here. I appreciate the hell out of that. Caroline, thank you very much. Disney Nerd, everyone. Shannon, welcome to the family, Shannon. Fallen Angel, Rich Buddy, thank you, everyone. Appreciate the hell out of it. You guys are amazing and awesome. And again, make this completely worth it. All the new members, you are producers of this content. And again, jump in the Discord. That's where your voice will be the loudest and be heard. But also on these on these videos, leave comments. And Twitter. Again, Twitter is where I'm doing most of my daily activity at anyways. That's where I'm hanging out. That's where I'm giving my opinions. That's where I'm shooting stuff off the top of my head at. Join Twitter. Bobby, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, going to be ending this again. Have a good Sunday. Have a good week. I will see you Tuesday. Thank you all so much. Another Murder Church in the books.
See, we shoot them up bang bang over here. We not scared of they motherfucking ass.